Number 81 Huangquan Road. When the city is shrouded in darkness, the things lurking in the darkness begin to stir. The old lady with the cat face eating raw meat, the fitness girl with fish scales on her back, the wild fox that chats up people on the roadside, and the small supermarket opened in the cemetery. I have experienced all of these. And it all started when I witnessed a car accident with my own eyes. Chapter 1: The Night Road. Lately, I've had the unsettling feeling that someone is following me, especially when I'm coming back from the night shift. I work at an automobile factory, and this month I've been on the mid-shift, from 4 p.m. to midnight. Every day, the factory provides a shuttle to and from work. But where I live, there is about a 300-meter stretch of dark road I have to walk. It was never an issue before. But since the beginning of the month, when I was waiting for the shuttle at the intersection, I witnessed a traffic accident. A woman riding an electric scooter got caught under a big truck, and her head was crushed. The blood and brain matter were everywhere. The scene was horrifying. It scared everyone around, including me. I was at the scene, and I was shaken to the core. I couldn't focus properly when I went to work after that. Now, every time I see a big truck passing by, I feel a rush of fear. For the past few days, when I pass by the intersection on my way home, it's become worse. The scene of the accident, with the gruesome details, keeps replaying in my mind. During the day, it's fine because there are a lot of people around. But at night, when I'm coming back, I usually end up running, too scared to stop. The more I try to rush, the more I feel anxious. I'm not sure if it's because I'm overly sensitive or just traumatized, but even when I pass the intersection, I feel like someone is following me. Thump, thump, thump. It feels like every step I take, there is an echo. When I walk, they walk with me. When I stop, they stop. It's like a cold chill at the back of my neck. I glance back, but all I see are the dim streetlights. The dark alleyways are empty. I keep walking, and the synchronized footsteps and icy sensation return. Even when I get home, I have this inexplicable feeling of being watched. Lying in bed, my back still feels cold, even with the blanket on. When I lie flat, I feel like something is pressing on my chest, as if a heavy stone is sitting on it. For several nights, I've woken up suddenly, unable to sleep peacefully. This has been affecting my rest and making me feel mentally exhausted. At work, I keep making mistakes and my boss has yelled at me several times. He threatened that if I made any more mistakes, I'd be kicked out of the factory, and my performance bonus would be withheld. I've thought about moving to the company dormitory or finding another place to stay. But the factory dorm is disgusting, and my coworkers and I don't get along. I also don't want to live with others. Plus, I've already paid 2 months of rent for my place, and there is still 1 more month left. If I move out now, the landlord won't refund my deposit or extra rent. I barely make enough money as it is, so I figure I might as well stick it out for a little longer. So I've been enduring the situation, but the feeling of being watched has only intensified, making me more paranoid. This morning, when I washed my face, I found blood everywhere, in the basin and on my face. I was so scared at first, but then I realized it was just the cheap towel I bought at the night market that was bleeding dye. But there were heavy dark circles under my eyes, and my mental state was terrible. With that state of mind, I went back to work for another night shift. Nothing unexpected happened, except that my boss, the idiot, targeted me again and yelled at me in the meeting. After work, I sat in the shuttle bus and counted the days left on this shift schedule. Only 3 days left. Once those 3 days are over, I won't have to work the night shift anymore, and hopefully, the feeling of paranoia will disappear. I dragged my tired body out of the shuttle at the intersection where the accident happened. The sky was dark, and the night breeze was slightly cold. As the shuttle drove off, I had to walk the dark road alone again. But tonight, I noticed a woman in a white dress standing under the streetlight on the other side of the intersection. She was wearing a white nightgown and stood still, not moving. I couldn't tell what she was doing. The spot she was standing in was exactly where the accident had happened at the beginning of the month, and I had to pass there to get home. Looking at her, a chill ran down my spine. I didn't want to pass by her. But there was no other way to go. Reluctantly, I gathered the courage to cross the street. As I got closer to her, I couldn't help but glance at her. Her skin was very pale, probably the type who sits in an office all the time and doesn't get much sun. She had her head slightly lowered, standing still. The street light above her flickered, buzzing with a kaz-kaz electric sound. I didn't care why she was standing there. I hunched my shoulders and quickened my pace, trying to get past her quickly. But as I passed her, she suddenly spoke. "Hey, can you help me change some money?" Her voice was soft, tinged with sorrow. What does she need money for at this time of night? Besides, I don't even know her. I pretended I didn't hear and hurried off. When I was far enough away, I glanced back and was shocked to see that she was following me. She was walking slowly, but I could see she was smiling at me, and the smile was creepy. This sight sent chills down my spine. Already on edge, I became even more frightened. I swallowed hard and started running. When I got inside, I slammed the door shut with a loud bang. I sat on the couch, holding my head, breathing heavily, feeling inexplicably scared. I wondered if I was just under too much mental stress, imagining things. Or had I really encountered something unclean? Just then, there was a knock at the door. Knock, 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 knock. It had a rhythm, one knock, followed by 4 more. When I heard this, my scalp went numb. I remembered what the old people in the village used to say. When people knock 3 times, it's a human. When it's 4 times, it's a ghost. Is someone outside knocking, or is it? Chapter 2, A Terrifying Night. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking continued. I was trembling, gripping the pillow, too scared to respond. My eyes fixed on the door, my body shaking uncontrollably. But the knocking didn't stop, it seemed endless, and there was no voice. Finally, I mustered the courage to yell out. Who is it? As soon as I spoke, the knocking ceased. After about 2 seconds, a strange woman's voice came from outside. Can you change some money for me? The moment I heard those words, my mind instantly went back to the woman I had encountered at the intersection, the one who asked me to change money and followed me, grinning eerily. I became even more terrified, and stuttered in response. I don't have any money, go away. I spoke in fear, almost on the verge of breaking down. I huddled in the corner of the sofa, holding my head. After I shouted, the knocking stopped, and there was no sound from outside anymore. Everything seemed to settle back into silence. But I couldn't sleep, my mind restless. I kept the lights on, staring at the door, afraid that if I looked away, the door would suddenly open. I only managed to fall into a shallow sleep as dawn was approaching. When I woke up again, it was already 2 in the afternoon. I felt groggy and exhausted, having endured a sleepless night. Just as I was about to get up and wash my face, I noticed a thin blanket draped over me. I froze in place. I clearly remembered that the blanket was in the bedroom. I hadn't gone in to get it last night. So how was it now covering me? Had I misremembered? I picked up the blanket and looked around, then pressed my temples. Maybe I was just too mentally exhausted recently and had gotten confused. But what about the knocking last night? How do I explain that? Just thinking about the woman at the intersection made me shiver. Was she human, or a ghost? I splashed some cold water on my face. Looking at my pale face in the mirror, I sighed deeply. I still had to go to work. I made myself a bowl of noodles and grabbed a trash bag before heading out to work. This was my second night shift before my schedule changed. In 2 days, I would be working the day shift again, I thought to myself. As I was about to go downstairs, my neighbor, Mrs. Wang, opened her door to take out the trash. When she saw me, she smiled and said, "Chin, I'm sorry about last night. My son-in-law didn't have any change for cards. When he saw you coming back from work, my eldest daughter asked you to change money for her and probably disturbed you." I froze when I heard this. I was very surprised and asked, "Last night, was it your daughter knocking on the door?" Mrs. Wen seemed puzzled by my reaction and said, "Yes, why?" When I heard that, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I almost laughed. I thought it was something supernatural, a ghost knocking on my door. It turns out I had just been overly paranoid and imagined it all. My tense mood instantly relaxed. The stone hanging over my heart had finally fallen. I bitterly smiled to myself. I must have been exhausted and overly sensitive lately. After all, it's the 21st century, there's no such thing as ghosts. I smiled and shook my head. "It's okay, Mrs. Wang. I didn't have change last night, and I was just in a bad mood, that's all. Mrs. Wang still smiled and said, "It's fine, but I need to tell you something. Your girlfriend is very beautiful, but she needs to take care of herself. Look at your face, it's so pale. You should be drinking more soups to nourish your health." I froze when I heard this. Girlfriend. And nourishing health with soup. I was single, so where did this come from? Confused, I replied. "Mrs. Wang, I don't have a girlfriend." Mrs. Wang looked at me knowingly and said, "Don't be shy, young man. I saw you come back last night. The one in the white dress, very fair-skinned. She went in with you. All right, go to work now." He. After saying that, Mrs. Wang closed the door and went back inside. I stood there in the hallway, feeling like a bucket of cold water had been poured over me, from head to toe. The sensation of someone watching me from behind returned. My heart, which had just relaxed, shot up into my throat. Last night, a woman came in with me. I swallowed hard, glancing around the dimly lit hallway. The hallway suddenly felt eerie. I was scared, and in a hurry, I rushed downstairs. How could a woman in a white dress have come in with me last night? There was only me in the room. Could it be that the blanket over me wasn't mine? A chill ran down my spine. I didn't dare think any further or know what to do. I left the apartment and went to the intersection to wait for the commuter bus. The intersection was bustling with people during the day. Yet I still couldn't shake the feeling of fear, anxiety gripping me. The mental strain over the past month made me feel lost in this unfamiliar city, unsure of what to do next. I felt like I was enveloped in fear and darkness, unsure if I was losing my mind or if something supernatural was happening. I felt isolated, helpless. I got on the commuter bus, my face filled with melancholy. As the bus was almost about to stop, a middle-aged man suddenly sat next to me. I didn't pay much attention to him, only thinking about what to do after work, whether to return to my rental. The middle-aged man, playing with his phone, casually spoke to me. "Chinzi, right? I've been observing you for a few days. Have you been experiencing strange, unexplainable things lately?" These words felt like a stab to my heart. I turned sharply to face him. The man looked familiar, but I didn't recognize him. He was probably from the logistics department, not from the assembly line. I didn't know his name. He smiled calmly, swiping on his phone without looking at me. But I was stunned and stammered. How did you know?" The middle-aged man only gave a faint smile and didn't explain much. He reached into his pocket and fumbled around. Finally, he pulled out an old copper coin from his jeans with difficulty. He handed it to me. "Take this. If anything strange happens again, just throw this old coin on the ground and tell her to take the money and leave." Chapter 3, The Copper Coin. I stared at the grayish-brown copper coin in the middle-aged man's hand, along with his words. I was taken aback, but before I could say anything, the man pushed the coin toward me again. "What are you staring for? Take it." "Oh, okay." I instinctively agreed and took the copper coin. Someone had just approached me out of the blue and pinpointed the hidden worries I'd been carrying for the past month. I was both surprised and uncertain. The coin was a bit larger than a regular copper coin, and it seemed to be quite old. The inscriptions were almost worn out. Before I could even thank him, the commuter bus arrived at the factory gates. As the doors opened, my co-workers started getting off the bus. The middle-aged man was no exception and, without sparing me another glance, casually got off while scrolling through Douyin TikTok. I looked down at the copper coin in my hand, wanting to ask him more questions, but as soon as I opened my mouth, I realized I didn't even know his name. Plus, there were so many people around. By the time I got off the bus and tried to catch up, he was nowhere to be seen. I took a deep breath and put the coin away. I thought to myself, maybe I had met someone knowledgeable. After all, how else could he so easily see through my hidden worries? Since he gave me this coin, it had to be useful. If I encountered any more strange events at night, I would rely on his advice and hopefully be safe. Holding the coin felt like taking a calming pill. My anxiety lessened, and I wasn't as scared anymore. The rest of the workday went by mechanically, and since my mood had improved, I didn't make any mistakes and wasn't called out. After work, I stood at the commuter bus stop, holding the copper coin, scanning the area for the middle-aged man who had given it to me. But after waiting for over 10 minutes, I didn't see him anywhere. "Hey, are you getting on? I'm leaving." The driver called out as I stood there, not moving. "Yeah, I'm coming." I glanced around again before turning to board the bus. If I hadn't met the middle-aged man in the afternoon and received the coin, I definitely wouldn't dare go back to the apartment tonight. I was planning to sleep at an internet cafe. But now that I had the coin, I decided to follow his advice. If anything strange happened again tonight, I'd just throw the coin on the ground. After all, there should be an end to these things. You can hide from them for a while, but not forever. On the bus, I tightly gripped the old coin in my hand, my palm sweaty. About half an hour later, I arrived at the intersection. I pulled my collar up slightly, feeling cautious, and got off the bus. The bus sped off, leaving me behind. I glanced back at the intersection, which was deserted. The whole street was eerily quiet. The only sound was the dim streetlight buzzing, and there was no one in sight. When I saw no one around, I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to cross the street to head home. But just then, a woman's voice suddenly rang out from behind me in a sorrowful tone. "Hey, can you change some money for me?" As soon as I heard that voice, I felt a chill creep up from behind. My face immediately turned pale. It was the same voice as the woman I had encountered last night under the streetlight. My whole body tensed, and goosebumps spread over my skin. Still, I forced myself to suppress the fear, and mechanically turned to the side, glancing over my shoulder. Not far behind me, standing there, was the same woman in a white dress. She had black long hair and a white gown, her head slightly bowed so that I couldn't see her face clearly. Her skin was as pale as an A4 sheet of paper. Everything about her voice, her appearance was identical to the woman I had met last night. My breathing quickened involuntarily. Although it was summer, my teeth were chattering with cold. The woman, seeing that I didn't respond, spoke again. "Hey, can you change some money for me?" I shrank my head, holding my breath, feeling a coldness wash over me. I threw the copper coin I was holding onto the ground. Here's the money. Take it and go, please." For the first time, my voice was so shaky. The coin hit the ground with a crisp sound, then rolled to the feet of the woman in white. She looked down at the coin, and in a slow, sorrowful voice, she said, "Thank you." Afterward, she crouched down to pick it up. That's when I noticed something. She was standing under the streetlight, yet she had no shadow. My mind went blank, and my pupils dilated in terror. I stumbled backward a few steps, unable to stop myself. There's only one thing that doesn't cast a shadow: ghosts. I gasped for breath, too frightened to waste another second, and immediately ran across the street. But just as I stepped onto the road, it felt like someone suddenly yanked me from behind. I staggered, and my pace slowed. At the same moment, the deafening sound of honking and screeching brakes filled the air. Vroom, screech. A dirt truck, loaded with mud, sped past me, barely missing me by just 30 centimeters. I even felt the heat from the tires as the truck whizzed by. It was a close call with death, and I was so scared that I collapsed onto the ground. The truck came to a screeching halt about 20 or 30 meters away, and rocks and dirt fell off the truck. There was a long skid mark on the road. A bald man jumped out of the truck, hurriedly checked if I was okay, and sighed in relief. But then, he started cursing at me. "Are you trying to die? Go die somewhere else. Damn it, don't crash into my truck and scare the hell out of me, idiot." After that, he spat on the ground, climbed back into the truck, and drove off. Shaking, I watched the tail lights fade, then scrambled to get up. When I looked back at the sidewalk, I saw the woman in white again. She had raised her head, and was now standing about 10 meters away from me. Her face was ghastly pale, but she looked strangely thrilled. Her eyes were wide open, without pupils, just dark holes, and she was smiling eerily, her lips curling upward as she muttered a low laugh, "Hee hee hee." Chapter 4, Palpitations. Seeing the white-clad woman's pale face, her hollow eyes, and that eerie laugh, it felt as though an invisible boulder had pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. My mouth trembled uncontrollably, and my mind went blank. I was more certain than ever this woman was not human. I was truly being haunted by something evil. Fear gripped me, and there was only one thought in my mind: I had to escape, to get away from this ghostly woman as quickly as possible. I needed to leave this creepy place as soon as I could. Breathing heavily, I stumbled forward, running awkwardly. When I reached the intersection, I dared to glance back. The shadowless woman hadn't followed me. She was still standing in the same spot, facing me. Her pale face, combined with her white clothing, made her incredibly conspicuous in the darkness. Seeing she had followed me, I felt a slight relief, but I didn't dare slow down. Thud, thud, thud. In the dim alley, the only sounds were my heavy footsteps and labored breathing, which felt suffocating. I didn't dare stop. The alley was narrow, and I definitely didn't want to look back. I ran frantically, my fear escalating. By the time I reached the bottom of my building, I was out of breath, drenched in sweat. I saw two drunken neighbors chatting, so I dared to look behind me again. The alley was empty. Other than the dim streetlights and the wind rustling the tree branches, there was no sign of the white-clad woman. I sighed in relief, but I still hurried up to the fourth floor, unlocked the door, and made sure it was firmly locked. Once inside, I turned on all the lights and collapsed onto the couch, feeling a little more at ease. But even as I tried to relax, I kept glancing nervously at the door and the balcony, constantly alert for anything that might suddenly appear. Before all this happened, I had always thought of myself as fearless. But now I realized how wrong I was. I was terrified of ghosts and, even more so, of death. Still, after returning tonight, the strange feeling of being watched, which had haunted me for days, seemed to have disappeared. But thinking back to what had happened tonight, my heart still raced. The woman without a shadow, the strange sensation of being tugged at, nearly getting hit by the truck, and brushing past death, it was all too much. The weirdest part was when I felt someone pull my clothes. If it hadn't been for that moment, I would have been crushed by the dump truck on the street. But there was no one else there, just that shadowless woman. Could it be that because she took my coin, she saved me? But she had been so far away from me. I couldn't make sense of it, and I couldn't be sure. But if that was the case, maybe this ordeal was over. With that thought, the heaviness pressing on my chest began to lift, and a rare smile appeared on my face. After a short pause, I went to freshen up and then returned to my room to sleep. It was the most peaceful sleep I'd had in a month. I slept straight through until daylight, even allowing myself to indulge in a little extra sleep. When I woke up, I felt much more energized. I didn't have the same foggy feeling as I had in the past few days. Looking in the mirror, I saw more color in my face, and my dark circles had faded a little. I was secretly happy. It seemed like the copper coin the middle-aged man had given me had worked. Today, when I saw him at work, I'd have to thank him properly. With that thought, I changed into my work clothes and prepared to grab a bite to eat before heading to my night shift. But just as I opened the door with a light heart, a gray-brown copper coin dropped with a thunk sound from the door crack, rolling halfway across the floor before stopping right at my feet. As soon as I saw the coin, my pupils dilated. My previously calm and relaxed expression froze. I stood rooted to the spot. After a few seconds, I came back to my senses, trembling as I picked up the coin. As soon as I touched it, a chill ran through me, as if the coin had been stored in a freezer for hours. It was freezing cold. What was even more unsettling was that this coin was the same as the one I had given to the shadowless woman last night. I remembered every detail of it. But aside from that, the back of the coin was stained with a small amount of blood. How did this coin get here? Why was it covered in blood? How did it end up wedged in the door crack? A sense of dread began to spread through me once again. I felt my anxiety and fear surge back to the surface. What was going on? Why is this happening? I asked myself these questions over and over, but the only explanation that made sense was that the white-clad woman wasn't going to let me go. She had returned the coin to me and slipped it into the door crack. She was still after me. But what did she want? She didn't want money. Did she want me dead? My back chilled, and I stood frozen at the door, horrified for a long while. Finally, I shoved the coin in my pocket and rushed down the stairs. Though I was terrified, I knew one thing for sure. The only person who could help me now was the middle-aged man from the logistics department. If I wanted to get rid of the shadowless woman, I would have to seek his help again. Chapter 5: Finding Someone. My mind was in turmoil. I rushed out of my rented apartment, with no appetite left to eat. In this state of panic, I didn't even feel hungry. At the intersection, the street was bustling with people and cars, a far cry from the eerie quietness and gloominess of the night. Looking at the spot where the car accident had happened a month ago, I felt confused, even unable to understand it. Why was I haunted by evil spirits just because I witnessed a car accident? There were so many people at the scene, so why was it me who encountered a ghost? Was I that easy to target? The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became. As an ordinary person, I felt like there was no way out, no escape. I anxiously waited for the company bus, hoping to see the middle-aged man from the logistics department as soon as possible. After about 40 minutes, the bus arrived. When the doors opened, I hurriedly got on, not bothering to find a seat first. Instead, I scanned the bus for the middle-aged man. Unfortunately, he wasn't there. I didn't know where he would board, so I sat near the door, waiting. I was extremely anxious, clutching the bloody copper coin in my hand. Even after all this time, it still felt ice cold to the touch. The bus made several stops, traveling through 7 or 8 stations, until it finally arrived at the factory gate, but I still didn't see the middle-aged man. I was now completely panicked. After getting off the bus, I waited for a while at the factory entrance, thinking maybe he had taken a different bus. But again, there was no sign of him. At this point, it was almost time for the shift to start, and I couldn't care less about going to work. Not seeing the middle-aged man, I decided to go straight to the logistics department to look for him. Just as I entered the factory and started walking toward the logistics department, the team leader of our line suddenly popped up from nowhere. He was drinking bottled water and eating a 2 yuan roasted sausage while making crude jokes to a few of the female workers. When he saw me walking toward the logistics department, he immediately shouted at me. Hey, hey, hey. Chinzi, only a few minutes left before the shift starts. Where do you think you're going? Since he was the team leader, I still tried to be polite. After all, the individual performance ratings were decided by him every month. Team leader, I have something urgent to do. I need to go to the logistics department, I'll be a few minutes late for my shift. I started to walk away, but he was petty and held grudges. When I first joined the factory, I had clashed with him, so now he often targeted me, especially in front of the female workers. He raised an eyebrow, his face full of arrogance as he said, "What? Are you the one calling the shots or am I? Do you think this factory is your home? You can come and go as you please. You need to get to your station immediately, no delays. Otherwise, forget about your performance bonus this month." I had had enough of this guy after working here for half a year. With my nerves already on edge, I couldn't stand his attitude any longer and snapped. Go to hell. You think you're a big shot just because you're the team leader? Forget my performance, I don't care anymore. Do whatever you want. I turned around and walked away, showing him no respect, and I felt a huge sense of relief in doing so. The team leader stood there, stunned, not expecting me to react like that, especially in front of the female workers. By the time he regained his composure, I was already a good distance away. My priority now was to find the middle-aged man and get his help. Everything else didn't seem as important anymore. Arriving at the logistics department, I saw that the workers were busy preparing goods, some for the production line, others for after-sales service. I only knew that the middle-aged man worked in the logistics department, but I didn't know his exact position or name. As I was about to ask around, an electric forklift suddenly stopped in front of me. "Chinzi, what are you doing here?" a voice said. I looked up to see the middle-aged man. He was wearing a safety helmet and carrying 2 boxes of car parts. I glanced at his name tag. His name was Chen Qiang, and he was a dispatcher in the logistics department. I felt a sense of relief and immediately got to the point. "Chen Ji, the copper coin you gave me yesterday, it's been returned to me." Chen Ji, who had been smiling just moments ago, froze when he heard this, his expression turning serious. Returned, he asked, shocked. I nodded. "Yes, and look, it's even stained with blood." I took out the copper coin he had given me yesterday. When Chen Ji saw the blood-stained coin, his face instantly darkened, and his expression became grim. He quickly jumped off the forklift, grabbed the coin, and immediately frowned when it touched his hand. He then urgently asked me for the details of everything that had happened. I told him everything that had occurred in the past few days, including what happened today before I left the house, and asked if he could help me. After listening, Chen Ji's face grew even darker. Perhaps my situation had exceeded his expectations, and he seemed surprised. He had never imagined I had been haunted for over a month. Finally, he squinted his eyes and, with a serious and somber tone, said, "Since that thing doesn't want money, it must want your life." I didn't expect it to be such a persistent one. When I heard these words, my heart sank. I had guessed it right. The chill ran through me as I realized the danger. Although I wasn't a saint, I hadn't done anything wrong. To be suddenly haunted and to have my life threatened by an evil spirit was beyond my comprehension. Chen Ge, what should I do now? Why is this thing after me? Can I still be saved? I asked, my voice trembling. At this moment, Chen Ge was my only hope. He waved his hand, calming down and saying, "Don't worry, Xiao Qin. I once learned a few techniques from the old Taoist master at Longhu Mountain. I'm reliable. Let me take a short leave, and I'll take care of this for you tonight." Chapter 6, Life-Saving. After hearing what Brother Chen said, I felt more reassured. I never expected that Brother Chen, who works in logistics and distribution, had learned magic from the old Taoist priest in Longhu Mountain. With his help, my evil doing should be resolved quickly. I thought to myself, nodding my head and thanking him. "Thank you, Brother Chen. Now that this matter is resolved, I will definitely give you a big red envelope." Brother Chen laughed. He is a very straightforward guy. "No big deal, no big deal. Wait a minute, I'll drive the forklift in first, you wait outside." I said, and stepped aside. Brother Chen got on the forklift and quickly parked it in the warehouse. Then I went to the office and asked for leave from the head of the logistics department. In less than a quarter of an hour, Brother Chen came out and motioned for me to go out with him. I hurried to catch up. "Ask Brother Chen where he is going." Brother Chen said he was going to the market to buy a big yellow chicken with a red head, comb and black tail. I was a little confused when I heard about buying chickens. He asked with a puzzled look, "Brother Chen, why are we going to buy chickens? And they have to be big yellow chickens with red heads, combs and black tails." Brother Chen lit a cigarette and took a puff. "Xiao Qin, you don't understand this. This yellow chicken is very spiritual and has strong yarn energy. I bought this beast to protect you from disaster and save your life." Replacement. I widened my eyes, a little surprised. Brother Chen nodded and explained it to me in detail. He said that through his analysis, he was haunting me. It should be the woman who died in a car accident at the beginning of the month. Because it was a sudden death and his body was incomplete. This kind of person will have a lot of resentment after death. If one does not have enough merit, one will be reborn as an animal in the next life. So these dirty guys start looking for substitutes. Kill others and transplant flowers and trees. It's almost the same as the water monkey looking for a substitute. The reason why you found me. Maybe they saw that my yarn energy was weak and I was at the scene of a car accident, so they targeted me. It has only appeared recently because my luck has reached the red line and my yarn fire is weak. Today, Brother Chen is going to use the big yellow chicken to ward off disaster for me. I used a trick to make the dirty thing that was clinging to me mistakenly think that the yellow chicken was me. After the job is done, the dirt will naturally go away. What they call exchanging money actually means exchanging life. No matter you agree or not, if you are really entangled by them, there will basically be no good result unless you are lucky enough. Of course, if you are lucky and have a lot of yarn energy, these things will not bother you at all and will avoid you when they see them. Brother Chen didn't know the details before. He only noticed that my yarn energy was weak these days and my luck was bad. He only saw that I was haunted by dirty things, but he didn't know how serious they were. So he gave me a ghost-beating coin. Most dirty people would know how to behave themselves when they see something like that, and would just take the money and leave. But I didn't expect that the thing that was haunting me was full of resentment and was targeting my life. Of course, one coin for killing ghosts cannot be used to get rid of it. Even the one that was pestering me, and got his money and blood stained, could still be returned. That's enough to show her determination. This is clearly an attempt to kill me. But Brother Chen also said this while patting his chest. If he takes action, he will definitely get it done for me, so I can rest assured and have no worries in the future. After hearing this, my mind suddenly became clear and I praised Brother Chen for his clever approach. I can actually use a big yellow chicken as a substitute for me. Brother Chen laughed a few times and said that this was just a last-ditch effort. In front of truly capable people, you can't stand up to the standard. I just thought Brother Chen was joking and didn't he continue the conversation. Anyway, my life has been handed over to Brother Chen. I do whatever he tells me to do. Whether he can survive or not depends entirely on Brother Chen's methods. Afterwards, we went straight to the nearby market. Fortunately, there were enough live poultry in the market, and I bought the big yellow chicken I wanted. It looked very energetic and bright. After buying the yellow chicken, Brother Chen tied a red rope around the chicken's feet. He muttered a few words in a mysterious way and touched its head. The big yellow chicken instantly became quiet and didn't flutter at all. At the same time, I went to the bank to withdraw 2,000 yuan in cash and put it in a red envelope for him. Brother Chen is a very generous and honest person. He said that he helped me not for money. I just know some methods to exorcise evil spirits. Seeing that I was unlucky and that I worked in a factory, he offered to help me, which was also a way to accumulate merit for himself. He kept making excuses and saying no. But they rescued me and delayed my work today. How could I not express my opinion? In the end, I forced it on Brother Chen. Because it's still early, and Brother Chen and I haven't had dinner yet. So I found a stir-fry restaurant nearby and sat down. While eating dinner, I arranged things for tonight. Brother Chen drank half a glass of beer, and then said to me very seriously, "Xiao Qin, give me your birth date later." I stuffed the yellow chicken into its stomach. After 10 o'clock tonight, you should hold the yellow chicken and walk westward without stopping. No matter who calls you, don't look back or talk to them randomly. When the yellow chicken starts flapping and clucking, then you stop. Having said that, Brother Chen paused for a moment, took a sip of wine, and then continued. "That's the time. Just take off your coat and clothes, burn them into ashes on the spot, and smear them on the yellow chicken. Then leave the yellow chicken in place, leaving a few strands of hair behind. Put some more mud on yourself, put on my coat, and put your shoes on backwards. That dirty thing won't be able to smell you anymore. I'll wait for you at the gate of People's Park. I will then make the next arrangements for you. Basically, everything will be fine after tonight." I opened my eyes wide and listened carefully. He nodded repeatedly and raised his glass. "Brother Chen, thank you for your help. I salute you." Brother Chen waved his hand. "It's nothing, just drink less. Otherwise it will delay things in the evening." I said, and only drank one glass. After dinner, it was already 9:30 in the evening. I asked the boss for a pen and paper so that I could write down my birth date and name by hand. After finishing writing, Brother Chen took it in his hand and took a look at it. He muttered to himself, "Shinsai year, Gui Sai month, Gui Yu day, Ding Hai hour." As soon as he finished reading it, Brother Chen's body shook and his face changed suddenly. Then he looked at me with a hint of horror. Xiao Qin, your 8 characters. No, it's not written wrong, right? Chapter 7, Go West. I was a little surprised when I suddenly saw Brother Chen's expression. He hurriedly took out his birth data and checked it again and again. I have also heard the elders talk about this in the village before. The 8 characters of birth represent a person's destiny. If they are written incorrectly, the result will naturally be a huge difference. So, after I took the note, I checked it carefully. Year, month, day, time, and strokes of name. After comparing them one by one, none of them were wrong. So I said to Brother Chen very seriously, "Brother Chen, I didn't write it wrong. It's all correct." When Brother Chen heard what I said, he looked at me in shock, took a breath and said, "Xiao Qin, your fortune is not simple." After hearing what Brother Chen said, I became interested and asked in confusion, "Brother Chen, is there anything to say about my 8 characters?" Brother Chen picked up my horoscope and said with a wry smile, "The Shinsai year is a yin year, the Gui Sai month is a yin month, the Gui Yu day is a yin day, and the Ding Hai hour is a yin hour. In other words, your life is a yin life." My heart skipped a beat, and I said in horror, "Yin Ming. Although I don't quite understand what Yin Ming means, the name doesn't sound very good." "Yes, you are yin life. This kind of fate is extremely rare, 1 in a million. But, it is not a good fortune. People with this kind of fate are extremely easy to be contaminated by dirty things. Moreover, people with this kind of horoscope are prone to young death. Xiao Qin, you have often encountered strange things before, right?" I took a long breath. I didn't expect that there would be such a saying about my fate. But looking back on the past 20 years, except for the fact that my parents died early, I have lived with my grandmother since I was a child. Apart from living in poverty, I feel that I have always been safe and sound and have not encountered any strange things. I shook my head. No, this is the first time. Even before, I didn't believe in ghosts and gods. I responded seriously. Chen Xiang was very surprised. In his opinion, people with special fate like mine are born to be ghosts and are prone to die young. For people with this kind of fate, it doesn't mean that if you don't provoke those dirty things, they will not appear. These things will come to you following the smell. This is also the reason why people with this kind of fate are extremely prone to young death. But listen to me, this was the first time I encountered a ghost when I was 20 years old. He felt a little confused and even suspected that I was lying. But seeing that I looked serious, I didn't seem to be lying, so although he was suspicious, he didn't ask too many questions. Then we walked out of the restaurant. Came to People's Park. It was pitch black all around, with only a few street lights on the side of the road still on. I looked at the time. It was 9:57. Brother Chen took off his coat and handed it to me. Then he said, "It's about time. Xiao Qin, just do as I told you in the restaurant and walk west along the road. Remember, you can only stop after the yellow chicken starts flapping its wings. Don't look back and talk to anyone along the way." Brother Chen, I've remembered everything, don't worry. It's a matter of life and death, how could I not remember it? Seeing that I agreed, Brother Chen nodded. Go ahead. I said, and took Brother Chen's coat. Holding the big yellow chicken in his arms, he walked west along the road sidewalk. After taking a few steps, I heard Brother Chen calling from behind. I'll be waiting here for you. Remember what I told you. Got it, Brother Chen. I waved back at him. Because Brother Chen repeatedly told me not to look back, I was very alert to this. People's Park is close to the outskirts of the city. After walking for about 20 minutes, the surrounding area became very remote. There were very few people, let alone cars, around the road. Apart from the chirping of insects, the only sound was my footsteps. The big yellow chicken in my arms is very quiet. He shrank his neck and did not move. If it doesn't flutter, I won't dare stop. Continue walking at a normal walking pace. After walking for more than an hour, there were no street lights around and it became chilly around. On this dim road, I was the only one walking at night, holding the yellow chicken. The further we walked, the colder it felt. I always feel the wind blowing through my neck, and it feels cool. With every step you take, you can hear an echo. Tap, tap, tap. You have to know that this is already in the open suburbs. How can walking make an echo? I feel like there's someone behind me. Learning how to walk, still very close to me. He started to get nervous, hunched his head, clenched his hands, and didn't dare to look back. But the yellow chicken in my arms didn't move, so I had to keep moving forward. We walked forward for about 10 more minutes. Suddenly I saw what seemed to be a person at the entrance of the stone bridge in front of me. He was squatting at the entrance of the stone bridge, and no one knew what he was doing. It's a bit far and I can't see clearly. I was a little nervous and slowed down my pace. As I get closer, I vaguely discovered that the person squatting at the bridge entrance was an old lady in grey. She seems to be lighting a fire. He struck a match in his hand. There was a crackling sound, but there was not a single spark. He kept muttering to himself. Why, it just can't be done. I know that people burn paper and light incense at the bridge entrance. I have heard from the older generation that this is called buying the road through customs. It is said that the souls of the dead cannot cross the water. Although there is a bridge, it is for the living to cross. Some ghosts cannot see the bridge, so they need to burn money and incense to show their way. There is also a saying that there are ghosts and gods guarding the bridge. Burning money and lighting incense is a way to show filial piety to them. Then, after receiving the tribute, the ghost and god officials will let the dead soul pass, which is also called paying the toll. In this way, the wandering souls can return home. Besides, this kind of thing has to be done at night. Therefore, when I saw this old lady, I was not so nervous. This should be burning protection money and lighting incense to guide the deceased relatives. I held the yellow chicken and continued walking forward. But we just arrived at the bridge entrance. The old lady who was lighting the match suddenly stood up. When she stood up, I was startled. I saw the old lady in front of me, her whole body was wet, as if she had just crawled out of the water. His face was pale and swollen, and his eyes were so dark that the pupils were not visible at all. Wet drops of water flowed down her face to her chin. The water kept falling down, tick tick tick, and in just a short while, the ground under her feet was already wet. The water stains are still flowing towards me. She looked up at me, lowered her head slightly, and said in a very hoarse voice, "Young man, my lady's matches are wet. Can you lend me a light?" Chapter 8, Road Blockage. Seeing the old lady like this, I was so scared that I trembled all over. Subconsciously, he took 2 steps back. No matter how stupid I am, I would be shocked when I see the old lady's current appearance, especially her dark eyes without pupils. I also know that this old lady is not a living person at all. It's the dirty creature squatting here, trying to cross the bridge. Brother Chen told me, "Don't look back and don't talk to anyone along the way." At this moment, when I heard the old lady asking me for a light, how could I dare to agree to her request? I can hardly protect myself now, how dare I lend fire to that dirty thing? I was very nervous and hurriedly took a few steps around, trying to bypass the old lady and pass by her. When the old lady saw that I wanted to take a detic, the smile on her face became stiff. "Young man, don't you want to lend me a fire?" There was clearly a hint of anger in his tone. He even took 2 steps towards me and blocked my way again, preventing me from getting on the bridge. I felt even colder. Looking at the old lady standing in front of him, his heart was in his throat. Goosebumps appeared all over my body, one after another. "Lend her your lighter?" As soon as this thought came to my mind, I quickly rejected it. Because I heard from others that only ghosts borrow things from people, and no one ever returns things to ghosts. God knows whether she is borrowing fire or her life. Plus, I was already angry, and if I gave this to her, don't even think about coming back. I can't help with this, and I can't talk about this. I continued to back away, taking a few detours. As a result, the old lady blocked my way again. It seems like if I don't get angry with her, she has no intention of letting me cross the bridge. What should I do? What should I do? Just as I was thinking about it and was in a stalemate with the old lady who was covered in water stains, the old lady's face became even gloomier, and she actually took another step forward. She even stretched out her white, swollen hands. "Young man, give the fire to the lady quickly. Only after she gives you the fire can you cross the bridge." There was a threat and even hostility in his tone. The corner of her mouth even showed a hint of cold ferocity. When I looked at the old lady, I felt numb all over. He was very scared and hugged the yellow chicken tightly, taking several steps back. But you can't shout or turn around and run. Going forward, the way was blocked. For a moment, I was stuck in a dilemma and had no idea what to do. What should I do? Should I just rush forward? I thought to myself. The old lady was pressing me and I was at a loss as to what to do. A cool breeze suddenly blew from behind me. This gust of wind was even colder and made me shiver all over. But the old lady's expression suddenly changed at this moment. She was ferocious just now. At this moment, he was looking behind me with great fear, his eyes almost popping out. His body trembled and he stepped back repeatedly, looking very scared. Finally, I don't know how, she suddenly said to me in panic, "Sorry, young man, I'm sorry to bother you." After saying that, the old lady turned around and ran madly towards the bushes near the bridge. But her running posture was very strange, with her feet on tiptoe. Soon, it rushed into the bushes and disappeared. Then there was a plop sound. There were splashes of water under the stone bridge, as if something had fallen into the water. Seeing the old lady running away, I became even more frightened and my whole body tensed up. Because I felt like there was someone standing behind me, and very close to me. It was almost sticking to my back, and I felt like I was leaning against an ice wall. The old lady was not afraid of me, but of the person or dirty thing behind me. I swallowed nervously. The first thing that came to my mind was the female ghost who asked me to take her life. I didn't dare look back. Seeing that the yellow chicken in my arms didn't move at all, I could only hold the big yellow chicken tightly and continue walking forward. I hurried my steps. The sound of thump-thump footsteps echoed on the bridge. After a while, we passed the stone bridge. But the feeling of someone standing behind me was very strong and did not disappear. Not long after crossing the bridge, I saw what seemed to be a person lying in the middle of the road. He was holding a broken bowl in his hand. In this desolate place, an old lady who had just left to borrow a light appeared, and now another figure appeared. I frowned, feeling a little timid. But he didn't stop and kept moving forward. When I got closer, I found that he was a beggar. His clothes were ragged, his hair was messy, and he was lying on the ground with his head tilted. "Come see me now." Without even raising his head, he just raised the broken bowl in his hand. He dragged out his voice and said with a little hoarseness, "Good-hearted man, please be kind. Give me some money." After saying that, he let out a strange, shrill laugh. It looked very scary in this dark wilderness. His face changed in shock, and he started to walk around holding the yellow chicken. The beggar in front of him smiled and slowly raised his head. A hoarse and low voice followed. "Can you get around without paying?" His face was sallow and he looked skin and bones. I couldn't see his eyes clearly because his hair was long and messy. However, his lips were pale and blue, the same color as the corpse's mouth. Moreover, he has no shadow. My heart was trembling, and I had a bad feeling. This was another dirty thing. What's wrong with me? Why do I keep running into these things lately? But when the old beggar looked up, his laughter suddenly stopped. He hurriedly lifted the messy hair in front of his eyes, revealing a pair of dark eyes. Then, his body trembled violently, and his face was filled with fear. Then he got up from the ground in fear, and bowed to me in fear and apologized. "No, no." After saying this, the beggar took the broken bowl and leaned on the crutch. He rolled and crawled, and hurriedly ran to the small woods nearby. I was afraid that if I ran too slowly, I would be eaten by something. Chapter 9, Grave Hill. I'm in a state of horror. But the old beggar in front of him ran away with the broken bowl in his hand. Judging from his panic-stricken look, he was extremely afraid of the thing behind me. I felt the coldness on my back and couldn't help but take a breath. How fierce is this thing? Even her own kind are so afraid of her. But since she was following me, why didn't she attack me? Could it be that it's because the yarn fire in my body is still quite strong that she is still afraid of me? Are you waiting for me to come back? I have seen some movies before that said there are 3 yarn fires on the human body, on the top of the head and on the shoulders. If you look back when walking at night, the 3 yarn fires may be extinguished or become smaller. This way, dirty things will have a chance to take advantage. Come to think of it, it feels like that might be the case. Otherwise, why did Brother Chen repeatedly remind me not to look back when walking at night? He took a breath and shrank his neck. Continue walking forward holding the yellow chicken. As long as the big yellow chicken doesn't flap its wings, I won't turn back even if the King of Heaven comes today. I thought to myself, quickening my pace and moving forward. In front of us is a rather desolate hillside. There are many white flags hanging on the hillside. Apparently, there are many cemeteries on the hillside. I was very reluctant, but I had no choice but to go up the mountain. Maybe it's because of the good feng shui here, with mountains behind and water in front. The mountain is densely packed with graves everywhere. The white flags are bustling and very eye-catching in the moonlight. In addition, in this old cemetery in the wilderness, you would occasionally suddenly see 1 or 2 motionless white paper men, which looked very creepy. I lowered my head, not daring to look left or right to avoid feeling panic. A man walked among the graves and could clearly hear the echo of his own breathing and footsteps. That feeling was so uncomfortable, so depressing, and so torturous. The hair on my body stood up and I broke out in a cold sweat. My teeth chattered involuntarily, making a cracking sound that I couldn't control at all. But in order to get rid of that thing, I had no choice but to muster up the courage to move forward. But just as I passed between 2 graves, suddenly, I felt my eyes go dark, as if a pair of cold hands covered my entire face. Breathing stopped. I was frightened. I was already terrified to the point of collapse, and I couldn't control myself any longer. I called out instinctively. "R." I waved my hands in fear, trying to pull away the hands that were covering my face. But when I grabbed it, I was surprised to find out. It turned out not to be a human hand, but an old-fashioned paper money blown by the night wind, and the whole piece was stuck to my face. This kind of paper money is dark yellow in color, larger than the palm of my hand, and just covers my face. I was so nervous that I had an illusion at first. I thought it was some dirty creature that attacked me and covered my face. Now seeing that it was paper money for the dead, he breathed a sigh of relief and smiled bitterly. Without even giving me a chance to catch my breath, the big yellow chicken in my arms suddenly fluttered up. Its shrunken neck suddenly lifted up. A cluck sound came from his mouth. The sound was particularly clear on this mountain of graves. The wings kept flapping and struggling. It seemed like it sensed something and was very scared. At the same time, there were gusts of cold wind around. Huff, 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 is very cold. The Seoul flags were waving and paper money was flying all over the mountain. My heart skipped a beat. Looking at the flapping big yellow chicken, my breathing became rapid and my whole body tensed up. As Brother Chen said, the big yellow chicken began to flutter. I would have to burn my clothes as quickly as possible, leaving my hair and smearing the dirt. Put on his clothes, put on his shoes backwards and leave. Without having time to think, I threw the paper money in my hand away. He hurriedly put the yellow chicken on the ground and tied the red rope on its feet to a dead wood stick next to him. Then he quickly took off his clothes. 1, 2, then take out your lighter and light it. Click, 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 click. When lighting a cigarette, it is easy to light the lighter. At this time, my hands were shaking. It was somewhat out of control, and I failed after clicking 7 or 8 times. I could only hold the lighter with 2 hands. He clicked twice. Only then did he light the fire and set the clothes on the ground on fire. The clothes burn easily and have a bad smell. The flames quickly became stronger, but the color of the burning flames was a strange dark green. The flames swayed, making puff-puff sounds around the grave mound. And the direction in which the flames swayed was only to the west. Frightened, he moved closer to the fire. Use your body to block the flames to avoid being blown out. With my body blocking their view, the arc of the flames swing was significantly reduced, but it still existed. However, the clothes were already covered by the flames and were burned into black ashes in a short while. I was not afraid of the heat, and I saw that the clothes were burnt into black ashes and some black bumps. He grabbed a handful of black ash and touched the big yellow chicken. After a while, the black ash was all over the yellow chicken. After doing all this, I scooped up 2 handfuls of mud from the ground and rubbed it hard on my body. Now he was not afraid of getting dirty, nor did he mind that it was cemetery mud with a strange smell. As long as I can stay alive, I don't care about those things. After doing all this, I put on Brother Chen's clothes. Take off your shoes and put them on backwards. He reached out, pulled out a few strands of hair from his head and threw them next to the yellow chicken. Looking at the fluttering yellow chicken, it kept clucking. I whispered, "Master Ji, I'm sorry for treating you tonight." After saying that, I bowed to the big yellow chicken. It's my way of thanking it for saving my life. Then I ran forward quickly, instead of turning around suddenly. After seeing a tree, he walked around it and then walked in the direction he came from. But we didn't take the original path, but took some detours. But now, looking at the yellow chicken's position from a distance, I found that there seemed to be a man in white standing there. Just standing there motionless. I would definitely be scared, afraid that she would find me. Crouching, he ran forward desperately. After running down the hill of graves, the echo of footsteps disappeared. There was no longer that cold feeling behind me. I felt a lot more relaxed and even had a sense of joy of having escaped from a desperate situation. I know this matter is not perfect yet. Now we have the yellow chicken to take our place, and it has only temporarily confused the dirty things. The next step is to avoid that thing's perception. Covering myself with mud and putting on clothes can only cover up my scent. Wearing my shoes backwards prevents that thing from being able to tell which direction I'm going. If you want to be completely safe, you have to get to People's Park early. Waiting for Brother Chen's next arrangement. Chapter 10 Park. After leaving the Fanbao Mountain, I started to head back. He walked very quickly, as if he wished he could grow wings and fly back. But wearing shoes inside out makes running very awkward. I tripped over the stones on the ground several times and almost fell to the ground. So I can only slow down and move forward quickly. It was still chilly around, but the strange footsteps behind me had disappeared, and there was no longer a feeling of being stared at. This is the only place where I feel at peace. It took me about an hour to get back to the city. It was early morning now and there were few people around, but the road was becoming brighter. I walked quickly towards People's Park. At the same time, he took out his cell phone and sent a message to Brother Chen. Brother Chen, I'm at Renmin Road, and it will take at most 5 minutes to reach the park entrance. The message has just been sent. Ding dong. Received a direct reply. The reply is almost instant, and the voice message is 1 second. I walked and turned on the voice. However, a deep voice came out. Wait for you. There were only 2 words, and it sounded like Brother Chen's voice. But the voice was very deep, as if the throat was pinched and the person was holding his breath while speaking. Is it because it's cold that Brother Chen has caught a cold? It felt possible. After all, he was drunk and gave me his coat, and we stood at the park entrance for several hours. It is also possible to catch a cold suddenly due to being caught in the wind. I sighed in my heart. Brother Chen is such a good person. After this happens, you must thank the person very much. I put away my phone and continued to quicken my pace. Tap, tap, tap. Soon, I arrived at the park entrance. But when I arrived at the place, I didn't see any trace of Brother Chen. Looking around, it was empty. I was the only one on the entire street. Brother Chen went to the toilet. I stood at the entrance of the park and looked inside. It's so dark that I can't see clearly. But I did see a figure slowly standing up from a seat in the darkness. Then he slowly turned around and walked towards me. I squinted my eyes and looked at it carefully. Judging from his figure, it should be Brother Chen. Brother Chen. Brother Chen, is that you? I leaned my head forward and called out twice tentatively, but my voice was not loud. But my voice echoed at the entrance of this dead silent park. However, the figure did not speak. Just walked towards me very slowly. Eh? Not Brother Chen. I stood there without moving, just looking at the figure. There was an inexplicable sense of nervousness in my heart. As the figure got closer and closer and completely walked out of the shadows, I confirmed the other person's identity. Grey vest, matching grey factory pants. Not only his appearance and dressing, but also Brother Chen. After confirming that it was Brother Chen, I breathed a sigh of relief. Start walking towards Brother Chen. Brother Chen, why don't you say anything? You scared me. Brother Chen, what should I do next? I spoke, taking 1 step forward at a time. However, the distance between us was about 5 meters. Brother Chen walked out of the shadows and came under the street light. Because I kept running into dirty things, I went to see Brother Chen's shadow. No problem, dragging a long line under the street light. However, I still found that something was wrong with Brother Chen. Brother Chen walked slowly and kept his head down. Moreover, he was holding a dead chicken upside down in his left hand. The dead chicken was shaking in Brother Chen's hand, and its head was almost touching the ground. Drops of blood kept dripping from his mouth. Brother Chen, why are you carrying a dead chicken? And Brother Chen also stopped at this time. He was about 4 meters away from me, with his head down and not moving, holding a dead chicken in his hand. No matter how I looked at it, something felt wrong and I started to panic. Chen, Brother Chen, please stop scaring me. As I spoke, my face became a little stiff and I became nervous. But who knew that I had just finished speaking? Brother Chen suddenly let out 2 strange laughs. At the same time, he threw the bleeding dead chicken in his left hand over. Bang bang, it rolled down in front of me. Listening to Brother Chen's strange laughter, I saw the dead chicken under my feet. There was a buzzing sound in my head, my pupils contracted violently, and a chill flowed from head to toe. His face changed instantly, revealing a look of panic. His body was trembling and he took several steps back. Because I found out that the dead chicken was actually the big yellow chicken that I tied on the grave hill. No matter its fur color, size, or the red rope on its foot, I can be sure that this is the big yellow chicken that saved my life. Brother Chen, why is this chicken here? My eyes widened with fear. His face was full of horror, and he spoke in surprise, showing a wary look towards Brother Chen in front of him. But Brother Chen, who was laughing strangely, raised his head at this moment. When I saw this, I was completely numb. Because Brother Chen's face was pale at this time. Those eyes turned out to be exactly like the eyes of a dirty creature. There is no pupil, the entire eye is black. It forms a very strong contrast with the pale face. When I saw this scene, my whole body exploded. R. You are not Brother Chen. I spoke in horror. I was so scared that my heart started pounding and I quickly stepped back. But at this moment, my feet felt as if they were filled with lead. It is so heavy that it is difficult to take a step forward. His steps were inconsistent and he stumbled and almost fell. Brother Chen, with a pale face, approached me step by step with a strange smile on his face. A red head stretched out and licked greedily at the mouth. Those pair of dark eyes were staring at me intently. Not only that, he had already raised a piece of sharp broken glass in his hand without knowing when. The glass cut his palm, and blood flowed down his wrist and toward his elbow in a winding path. Tick tick, dripping. But Brother Chen didn't feel any pain at all. Instead, he looked very excited and kept moving closer to me. You are mine. Chapter 11, Possessed. The voice was very deep, and it was held back by pinching the throat, which made people tremble. Brother Chen has a shadow, but his eyes are like the eyes of a dirty thing. He must be possessed. He was holding broken glass in his hand and approaching me with a strange smile. I was extremely frightened. I wanted to escape now, but my legs felt extremely heavy. Every step I took felt extremely strenuous. At this moment, it's like running the 3,000 meters in junior high school. I had already reached my limit, but the PE teacher wouldn't let me stop. It felt like he was chasing me from behind. I could only drag my lead-filled legs awkwardly and move forward with gritted teeth. He looked at Brother Chen and said fearfully, "Don't come over here, don't come over here." But Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, continued to move forward step by step, neither slow nor fast. Every step he took seemed to be stepping on my heart. My heart was beating wildly. Besides my heavy breathing, the only sound in my ears was their boom, boom, boom sound of my heartbeat. I felt like my heart was about to jump out of my throat. It was extremely uncomfortable. There is also sticky stuff flowing out of the nasal cavity. I wiped it with my hand, and found that I was too nervous and too scared, and my heart suddenly beat too violently. My nose was bleeding. The possessed Brother Chen saw me bleeding from my nose, but he seemed to be enjoying it. He even took a deep sniff of my vagina, looking very comfortable. The sound that can only be made by pinching the throat still came out of his mouth. Wow! It smells so good. When he said this, a vague double image appeared on his pale face. It looked like there was another human face beneath his skin. Although the face was blurry, it was recognizable as a woman's face. It should be the female ghost who asked me for money. She must have possessed Brother Chen and now wants my life. I was about to collapse at the entrance of this empty and silent park. I can't run away, and I can't escape. Now I want to call for help, but I find my throat seems to be blocked. All he could make was a strange, hoarse sound like oh. Moreover, behind him was a possessed Brother Chen holding a sharp piece of glass. Despair enveloped me and I couldn't stop shaking. He could only drag his uncontrollable and extremely heavy legs forward with great effort. I didn't want to die, so I ran forward desperately. There are no residential areas and no pedestrians around. I wanted to escape to the highway. If a passing car had seen me, it might have been saved if it had stopped. I dragged my heavy body, making hoarse sounds with my blocked throat, and stumbled towards the road. But this place is too remote, and it's already early morning. Since I got here, not a single car has passed by. However, Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, was approaching step by step with a long trail of blood. The cold and oppressive feeling and the strange and weird laughter made me want to stay away from him. It seemed like he was deliberately driving me towards the highway. Brother Chen pushed me from one end of the road to the other side of the sidewalk little by little. At the other end of the trail is a cliff more than 10 meters high. I stuck to the fence and looked at the other party in fear. There is no escape now. But I also found that the other party had also stopped. Although he has been oppressing me step by step. But he always keeps a distance from me. Although it looks fierce, it poses no real threat to the outside world. Could it be that he is afraid of something? Suddenly, this thought flashed through my mind. But I didn't wait for me to think about it carefully and verify it in practice. Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, spoke hoarsely at this time. "Turn over." The voice was particularly low, and as he said this, double images on his face kept flickering. The two faces alternated, revealing an extremely ferocious expression. Especially those black eyes. It makes people feel an unprecedented sense of fear. The three words, turn over, began to echo in my ears. I was already terrified to the extreme when I suddenly heard these words. My mind went blank with a buzzing sound. I was completely confused, and then, as if possessed by a ghost, I pressed on the fence and raised my legs to try to flip over. There is a cliff more than 10 meters high on the other side of the fence. If you climb over it, you will definitely fall to death. When the possessed Brother Chen saw me lift my leg, he started laughing strangely again and seemed extremely excited. And I already had one foot on the fence. Just flip it upwards with force. But at this moment, I felt my back sink. The clothes seemed to be tugged at again. With a pop, his body flung backwards and fell back onto the sidewalk. After this fall, I just felt pain in my butt. The pain brought me back to my senses. When I thought about how I almost climbed over the fence and fell off the 10-meter high cliff, I felt a pang of fear in my heart. Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, saw me fall back to the ground but did not turn over. His face condensed and he said angrily, "Turn over quickly." This time, his voice was noticeably rougher and deeper. But how could I, who was sober, listen to him? If this falls over, he will really fall to death. I was so anxious that I blurted out, turn over your mother. If you want to turn over yourself." Their voice was very strange, it still felt like someone was pinching the throat, and their voice was hoarse and small. But these words angered Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits. He was shaking all over and looked very angry. I'll help die." The other party said these words angrily and rushed forward with the glass raised high. I was so scared that I stepped back and pressed myself against the fence. He instinctively raised his hand to block, looking very scared. However, Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, just took a step forward and then hurriedly retreated in panic. He seemed to want to go forward, but was afraid to do so. He just glared at me angrily and stabbed me with the broken glass. He spoke quickly, hastily, and ferociously. Turn over quickly." Chapter 12 Danger. Now I can neither hide nor escape. Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, was forced to cling to the fence, extremely terrified. But I found that although he was stabbing the broken glass in front of me, he didn't seem to dare to get close to me. It was about 2 meters away from me. It was as if there was something on me or behind me that scared him. Apart from verbal and physical threats, no actual harm was caused to me. Could it be that the yang fire in my body is still quite strong? Are you still a little afraid of dirty things, so you don't dare to come near me? So you can only scare me with words and actions, keep me in constant fear, and confuse my mind. Let me do something extreme and irrational and lose my life? But what about the feeling of having my clothes pulled just now? My mind is in a mess. But seeing that Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, didn't dare to get close, he felt a little relieved. At least it's safe now that we're at a stalemate. Now I can't escape, and I don't dare to rush up and fight with Brother Chen, who is possessed, so I can only wait like this. As long as we wait until dawn, I don't believe that the dirty thing possessing Brother Chen will not leave. Turn over quickly. Brother Chen was still speaking in a low voice, grinning. My saliva is flowing so much that it is almost pulled into sticks. A pair of black eyeballs were staring at me so hard that they were almost bulging out. Seeing that the other party couldn't really hurt me at the moment, I took a few deep breaths and wiped the blood from my nose with my hand. Directly responded back. I won't turn over, and I won't die. Damn you, let me see what you can do to me. I gritted my teeth and looked up, and found that after I said a few words to the other party, the depressed feeling in my heart actually felt a lot better. But who would have known that as soon as I finished speaking, Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, took a small step forward with difficulty. Immediately, blood flowed out of his mouth. He stared at me fiercely and said in a low voice, "You are mine." I saw the other person take a small step forward and the distance was shortened again. The confidence I had just gained collapsed in an instant. Before I could react, the possessed Brother Chen took another step forward. It was only 1 meter away from me. It pressed me tightly into the corner of the fence. But Brother Chen's nosebleed was gushing out like water. His whole face was distorted and looked extremely scary. It seemed as if every step he took towards me cost Brother Chen's body a huge price. "You are mine." He. Seeing the other party like this, the fear spread again. You can get close to me. I held onto the fence tightly with both hands and kept leaning back. At this moment, the possessed Brother Chen showed an extremely ferocious expression, with blood all over his mouth. Take your life. After saying that, he took another step forward. He raised the broken glass and stabbed it into my eyes. I was so scared that I raised my hands and grabbed Brother Chen's wrists tightly to avoid being stabbed. After being possessed by evil spirits, Brother Chen became extremely powerful. I just can't bear it. The whole person fell backwards due to the oppression. Half of his body was leaning outside the fence. I felt cold at heart and tried to resist, but it was of no avail. When I felt like I was about to fall, my back seemed to be pushed and my body regained some balance. This will temporarily give me more energy to confront Brother Chen, who is possessed by evil spirits. After being possessed by evil spirits, Brother Chen pressed me down tightly, laughing non-stop. He spoke in a low and excited voice. Mine, I'll get it soon. After saying that, the shards of glass that were stabbing me moved closer. The power of an ordinary person like me cannot stop it at all. No matter how hard I try with my hands. The broken glass in the other party's hand was still getting closer to my eyes. The blood that flowed down the glass dripped onto my brow bone, then flowed down my eyebrows to my ears, and fell down the 10-meter high cliff. I looked at the broken glass in fear, it was almost piercing my eyes. I quickly closed my left eye. The coldness of the glass fragments slightly pierced my eyelids, causing a sharp pain. The eyeballs also felt the sharp pressure and became slightly deformed, as if they were about to be punctured and burst at any time. I really don't have the energy to hold on anymore, I'm almost in despair. I even had a premonition that I would be stabbed to death by broken glass or fall to my death. On the other hand, Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, smiled even more happily and excitedly. Mine, you are mine. After he finished speaking, I clearly saw the veins on his arms and neck bulging, and he was about to stab me in the eyes. At that moment, I felt completely chilled. It's over, am I really going to die? A feeling of powerlessness brought me to the brink of collapse. But I don't want to die, and I don't want to be killed by a ghost. I kept thinking in my mind, what should I do? At this last moment of despair, I suddenly thought of the scriptures that my grandmother had read. Subconsciously, I suddenly recited it. When Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva was practicing the profound Prajnaparamita. Seeing that the 5 aggregates are empty. Overcome everything, all sufferings. My grandmother is a Buddhist and often recites Buddhist scriptures at home. I have been influenced by it since I was a child, so I remember some of it more or less. When I thought of it now, I read it out loud for some unknown reason. But who knew that when this passage was spoken, he would sound a little stammering. But Brother Chen, who was pressing on me, suddenly trembled violently, as if he was electrocuted, and immediately lost his strength. His face was distorted and he kept shaking his head, looking very uncomfortable. He shouted hoarsely. Damn it, stop reading it, stop reading it. I was delighted to see that it was useful. It's like grabbing a life-saving straw, how can I not recite it? Instead, he read it louder. Shariputra, form is not different from emptiness, emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, and likewise a feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Brother Chen, who was possessed by evil spirits, shook his head even more violently. The hand holding the glass suddenly loosened. Shards of glass grazed my scalp and fell off the cliff. It fell with a loud crackling sound. At the same time, Brother Chen staggered and retreated repeatedly. He shook his head violently and shouted in pain. Stop reading it. I told you to stop reading it. The more distressed he was, the louder I read. Shariputra, all dharmas are empty in nature. They are neither born nor destroyed, neither defiled nor pure, neither increasing nor decreasing. When he read this, the possessed Brother Chen suddenly yelled. R. The next moment, the body went limp. With a thump, he fell to the ground and lay motionless. The moment Brother Chen fell down, I vaguely saw a white shadow withdrawing from his body. Then, it flashed and disappeared into the darkness. Although Brother Chen fell to the ground, I did not approach him immediately. He continued chanting scriptures and moved forward little by little. I dared to stop only after I was sure that Brother Chen's complexion had returned to normal and he was no longer threatening. Then he pushed Brother Chen with his hand. Brother Chen, Brother Chen. After being pushed a few times by me, Brother Chen slowly opened his eyes. Xiao Qin, what's wrong with me? Seeing Brother Chen open his eyes and speak, he returned to normal. I breathed a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. I was shaking with excitement, my eyes were red. Chapter 13 Hospital. The experience just now made me feel like I had escaped death. Fortunately, all this is over. I got through it again, feeling both happy and sad. Hearing Brother Chen's question, I smiled bitterly and said, Brother Chen, you were possessed by evil spirits just now and almost killed me. There was horror and fear in his words. Brother Chen sat up with difficulty. We were seen sitting on the road, covered in blood, with a big scar on our palms. There were pieces of glass embedded in the scars, which made me feel surprised and puzzled. He frowned and tried hard to recall. After a while, he recalled vaguely. I remember standing at the entrance to the park smoking a cigarette. A big yellow chicken ran past me. It looked familiar to me, so I went to have a look. As a result, someone patted him from behind. As soon as I turned around, everything in front of me was pitch black. I forgot what happened next. Brother Chen held his head and recalled with some effort. I took a few deep breaths and told Brother Chen everything that had happened before. When Brother Chen heard this, I was almost killed by him because he was possessed by a ghost. In the end, I was able to escape the disaster by thinking quickly and reciting the Heart Sutra. Brother Chen was also greatly shocked. He wiped the blood stains from his nose and said regretfully, Damn it, I was so careless. Xiao Qin. I'm sorry. I still overestimated my abilities. I underestimated the ability of this dirty thing. It seems that this thing has become evil. Changsha. I asked in surprise. Brother Chen nodded. It's a ghost that can directly harm people. She has already taken the initiative to attack you tonight. And I suffered a loss. They will definitely not stop, and may even become more aggressive and brutal. This kind of dirty stuff is beyond my ability to deal with. I almost got myself into trouble tonight. Xiao Qin, I may not be able to help you. When I heard this, my heart suddenly sank again. If Brother Chen just gives up, won't I be dead? Brother Chen, if you don't save me, I will really die. Is there really no way to save me? I am just an ordinary person, screwing screws on the assembly line in a car factory. I just wanted to earn about 3,000 yuan a month, buy a few more clothes for my grandma when I go home for the new year, build a house in the village, and find a wife to live with. Suddenly, the ghost is coming to claim your life and you are about to die. I really couldn't accept it and was very scared. Brother Chen did not answer immediately, but took out 2 cigarettes while panting. Handed me one. He motioned for us to sit on the public chair next to us. After Brother Chen was possessed by a ghost, he bled a lot. I was very weak, gasping for breath after walking a few steps, and my body was shaking. Sitting on the chair, my hands couldn't stop shaking. I quickly took out my lighter and lit it for him. Brother Chen took a deep breath, and his expression eased a lot. Just because I can't handle this thing doesn't mean others can't. I will show you a way to find a real master to help you. Hearing the words of a true master, I nodded repeatedly. Brother Chen, where is the master? Brother Chen exhaled another puff of smoke and said solemnly. Go to Huangquan Road. Yellow Spring Road. My face suddenly changed color. Isn't Huangquan Road the road leading to the underworld after people die? Brother Chen asked me to go to Huangquan Road. Brother Chen saw that I looked frightened. He smiled and patted my shoulder. Don't be so nervous, this Yellow Springs Road is not what you think it is. There is a very famous hot spring in the east of the city because the mountain where it is located is called La Huanshan. The people there called the hot spring Huangquan. There is a road at the foot of the mountain, it is called Huangquan Road. After listening to Brother Chen's explanation, I felt relieved. Seeing that I was relaxed, Brother Chen continued. Go to Huangquan Road and find a feng shui shop called Wanfutang. The master in charge inside is named Jiu. If you find him, he will definitely be able to save you. I took Brother Chen's advice and kept it in mind. But at this moment, I planned to send Brother Chen to the hospital first. I had so much nose bleeding just now and there's a big cut on my hand. There are still glass fragments stuck in the wound, and if they are not removed, it is likely to become inflamed and necrotic. So after we finished smoking a cigarette, I called an online taxi. I supported Brother Chen, who was covered in blood, and went directly to a nearby hospital. We got off the car at the back door of the hospital. In addition, it was already around 3 in the morning and the hospital was deserted. The entire road was dark and buzzing, with no one in sight except for the illegally parked cars. I supported Brother Chen, who was dizzy and breathless, and walked towards the hospital. But as he approached the back door, he heard a bell ringing behind him. Ring, 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 ring. Because it was very late at this time, and suddenly I heard such a clear bell sound. I looked back curiously, but it was pitch black and there was nothing there. But the sound of the bell is particularly clear and loud. He supported Brother Chen and said, "Who is ringing the bell outside the hospital so loudly at this late hour? I just made a random complaint. After all, hospitals are full of sick people. The bell is ringing so loudly in the middle of the night. Doesn't it disturb the patient's rest?" But Brother Chen, who was supported by me, looked back in shock. Bells? What bells? Why didn't I hear any? I just wonder. Brother Chen can't hear such a loud and clear bell sound. It's the sound of a bell. It comes from behind. As I said this, I pointed behind me. But the next second, Brother Chen took a deep breath and held my hand. He said in panic, "Don't point, just stand against the wall." After saying this, the weak Brother Chen regained his strength. He pulled me against the wall. Brother Chen's sudden action left me stunned. What is going on here? Before I could ask, I saw 7 or 8 patients in hospital gowns with pale faces walking out of the hospital entrance one after another. They all lowered their heads slightly, and their eyes could not be seen clearly. Just like that, silently, one after another, one next to another. They slowly walked out of the security check, lined up neatly, and walked towards us. Brother Chen next to me suddenly covered my eyes. He lowered his voice and spoke quickly and seriously. "What are you looking at? If you don't want to die, close your eyes quickly." Chapter 14 Shop. Brother Chen suddenly covered my eyes, and his words were so panicked. He even mentioned the 3 words, "I don't want to die." I had a feeling something was wrong and even had some vague suspicions. These patients coming out of the hospital may not be human. After all, it was the middle of the night, and who the hell would be wearing hospital gowns and standing in a row coming out of the dark back door of a hospital? Everyone lowered their heads slightly and walked without making any sound. At this moment, he was clinging to the wall, with his eyes closed and his head lowered, his heart in his throat. The ringing of the bells continued. Ring, 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 ring. The sound is very clear and loud. I closed my eyes and lowered my head, so I couldn't see the patients walking out of the hospital. However, I felt a wave of coldness coming. Then I heard very faint footsteps. Squeak, squeak, squeak. As these subtle footsteps passed by, there was also a cool breeze, cool and cool. It cooled down about 7 or 8 times in total, and then the cold feeling around disappeared. The bell gradually became smaller and finally returned to calm. But I still didn't open my eyes. I kept them tightly closed and lowered my head. Until Brother Chen next to me pulled me up. "Okay, let's go." When I heard Brother Chen speak, I opened my eyes. Looking around now, there was nothing in the dark back street of the hospital. But I knew clearly what had just happened. It should be someone who died in the hospital. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but ask, "Brother Chen, those patients just now, are they?" Before I could finish my words, Brother Chen stopped me. "Don't ask, just know. Next time you hear this kind of bell sound, just close your eyes and don't look at it. If you see it, you will be taken away with the other patients. Take him away." My heart shuddered and I took a breath of cold air. What Brother Chen meant was that the sound of the bell was a death bell, right? Who has the ability to take the ghost away? Seeing my shocked expression, Brother Chen forced a smile. "We are in bad luck now, and our yang energy is weak. So you can see and hear things that you shouldn't see or hear. But it's okay, after this period of time, you will recover by getting more sun. Okay, let us go to the hospital." "Understood, Brother Chen." I nodded. I was haunted by ghosts and almost killed. I must have bad luck. Although I was still a little nervous, I was no longer as scared and frightened as I was at the beginning, and I quickly adjusted my mindset. Next, I helped Brother Chen go to the hospital. But Brother Chen couldn't breathe well after walking a few steps. I went to the emergency surgery department. The doctor on duty treated Brother Chen's wound and picked out the glass shards. But Brother Chen still felt dizzy, breathless, and had a lot of nosebleeds. After a series of examinations, many of Brother Chen's physical indicators showed abnormalities. The doctor suggested that Brother Chen be hospitalized for a few days for observation. Brother Chen was in this state because of me, so I immediately arranged for Brother Chen to be hospitalized and paid 5,000 yuan for the hospitalization fee. I stayed with Brother Chen in the hospital all night. I slept for a while when it was almost dawn. At about 11 o'clock, Brother Chen woke up. But after being possessed by the ghost, Brother Chen was still not in a good condition and looked very ugly. Seeing that I was still guarding, Brother Chen let me go back first. Let me go to find Master Gu according to the address he told me last night. Talk for a while and ask his wife to come over. He also said that he was just possessed by something dirty and his yang energy was weak, so he would be fine after a sickness. But my matter is a matter of life and death. If I don't handle it well, I may not survive tonight. Brother Chen is a really nice person, I am very grateful to him. I nodded, told Brother Chen to have a good rest, and then left the hospital. I went back to the rental house first. He changed his bloody clothes and then rushed to Huangquan in the east of the city without stopping. After looking at the map, I found that Wanfutang is located at number 81 Huangquan Road, Dongcheng District. At about noon, I took a bus to Huangquan Road and found Wanfu Hall. This is an old neighborhood, and most of the surrounding buildings are from the 1980s and 1990s. There used to be a fertilizer factory next to it, and it had a busy flow of people. Later, the fertilizer factory moved away and the flow of people here decreased a lot. Plus it's an old neighborhood, and everything is shabby. Many people are unwilling to settle here, and now half of the shops on the entire street are open and half are closed. The streets were in such a dilapidated state that no one repaired them. Most of the people living in this area are middle-aged and elderly, so there are few young people on the streets. The Wanfu Hall I was looking for was not far in front of me. It looked very shabby and simple, with a black wooden sign with 3 words, Wanfutang, written in white paint. There were several wreaths and paper figures placed in front of the house. After confirming that this was the place, I took a deep breath and walked straight to Wanfu Hall. When you walk into Wanfu Hall, you will feel that the room is dark and damp. A smell of incense, candles, and paper money hits me in the face. There is a small sofa and coffee table inside. The glass counter is filled with incense, candles and paper money. On the wooden cabinets are some urns, god tablets, and clay statues of gods. What about the 8-armed Nezar, the tower-bearing heavenly king, the red-faced Guangong, etc.? Because many things here are used by dead people. Coming here suddenly, I felt weird and a little nervous unconsciously. There was no one in the outer hall, so I shouted a few times. Is Master Gu here? Is Master Gu here? I shouted twice in a row. An old man's voice lazily came out of the room. I'm here. I'll be right over. Chapter 15, Seeking Help. I heard a response from inside the room and took a deep breath. Standing straight in the hall, looking towards the inner room. After a while, the curtain of the inner room was lifted. Then, a thin old man in a grey Zhongshan suit came out. The old man looked to be in his 60s, of medium build, with some wrinkles on his face. His hair was grey and parted. The eyes were very clear, without any turbidity, and looked full of energy. But the most eye-catching thing is the raised red scar on the old man's neck. There seemed to be dozens of stitches on both sides of the scar, which spread from the side of the neck to the throat. It looked like a red centipede was wrapped around his neck. After calming down, he asked, "You are Master Gu, right? My name is Qin Ziyi, and I came here today." Just as I opened my mouth to explain the origin, the old man in the Zhongshan suit was also looking at me. Now he said impatiently, "No need to say more. I can't do your job, go back." When I heard this, I was stunned on the spot. I haven't even opened my mouth yet, and you're saying it can't be done. Master Gu, I haven't said anything yet. I spoke hastily. Brother Chen said that the thing that has been bothering me will come tonight. If no one helps me, I might be doomed to die tonight. Master Gu from Wanfutang is now my only lifeline. The old man in the Zhongshan suit smiled slightly when he heard what I said. Your luck is so bad, it's useless to save you for just 1 or 2 days. Waste of everyone's time. You should eat and drink before it gets dark. For $1,000, I'll sell you another amulet. When you leave, you should be able to be more peaceful. After saying that, he took out a ball of yellow paper from his Zhongshan suit and unfolded it with his hands. It was crumpled and casually placed on the counter next to it. If he didn't say it was a talisman, he would have complained that toilet paper was irritating his butt. Although the other party's words were not kind, he could tell at a glance that I was unlucky and it was only a matter of 1 or 2 days. It shows that he has real ability. But in order to survive, I could only lower my posture and speak sincerely. Master Jiyu, I was recommended by Brother Chen Qiang. Say you can definitely save me. I also have a grandmother in her 70s at home who needs me to take care of her until her final resting place. I really don't want to die, please Master Jiyu save my life. Master Jiyu was stunned when he heard me mention Brother Chen. Did that brat Chen Qiang ask you to come over? Yes, Master Jiyu, Brother Chen is here to help me exorcise the evil spirit. I was possessed by a ghost last night and am still lying in the hospital. He gave me some pointers and asked me to come find you. Say you must have a way to save me. I tell the truth and hope to get help from Master Jiyu. Master Jiyu took a deep breath and changed the subject. That brat Chen Qiang, he has only learned a little bit and dares to help others. That's all. Come and sit down. It was that guy who asked you to come over. This shows that we are still destined to be together. I will see if I can let you live 2 more days. Hearing this, I was delighted. Thank you hurriedly. Thank you Master Jiyu, thank you Master Jiyu. After saying that, I sat on the sofa. Master Jiyu took out a pipe from the counter next to him and put some tobacco into it. He held it in his mouth, lit it and said, Tell me what happened. The more detailed the better. I didn't hesitate and saw the car accident at the beginning of the month. Then I started to feel someone following me, until last night when Brother Chen was possessed by a ghost. I recited the Heart Sutra and accidentally drove away the ghost. He told Master Jiyu in front of him everything. After listening to this, Master Jiyu laughed out loud. Har har, a blind cat catches a dead mouse. Good luck and some wisdom. You are the first ordinary person I have ever seen who can scare away evil spirits by chanting scriptures. What is your birth date? I will calculate it for you. Master Jiyu still looked very calm. I was not surprised at all by the danger I encountered last night. It seems understated, as if not worth mentioning. The more he does this, the more I feel that this guy has real talent. He must have seen a lot of storms and experienced a lot to be so calm and composed. Without any hesitation, I quickly said, My name is Qin Ziyi. Qin means Qin dynasty, and Ziyi means 3 drops of water. I was born on May 10, 2001 at 10 p.m. I said seriously. Master Jiyu held his pipe in one hand and puffed out smoke. Raise one hand in front of your chest and point your thumb at the other fingers. But, when I finished telling my birth date, Master Jiyu, who had looked calm just now, suddenly changed color and showed a hint of horror. The speed of the calculating fingers suddenly doubled. And he looked up at me from time to time, with obvious surprise in his eyes. I saw Master Gu's expression suddenly change, and I had a bad feeling. He asked in a panic, Master Jiyu, is my fate bad? But Master Jiyu raised his eyebrows and stared at me in surprise. In the yin year, yin month, yin day and yin hour, you are born with a pure yin fate. It's impossible, with your horoscope and your fate. How can I let you live to be 20 years old? Something is wrong, something is wrong. Master Jiyu suddenly started talking to himself, but I was confused and didn't understand what he was saying. But it feels like the matter is serious. After muttering to himself, Master Jiyu even put down his pipe and stared at me strangely. I felt scared and uncomfortable when Master Jiyu looked at me. Finally, Master Jiyu spoke in a low voice. Stretch out your hands so I can see your palms. Oh. I quickly stood up and stretched out both hands for Master Jiyu to read my palms. The moment Master Jiyu saw the lines on my palm, his pupils suddenly contracted. He grabbed both of my hands and stared at my 10 fingers carefully. Then, he showed a trace of horror again and said, 10 buckets. Chapter 16 Dilemma. Master Gu after reading my palm. He looked very shocked and stammered the word, shidu. I was totally confused, what was the meaning of fighting or not fighting? Then he asked Master Gu. Master Gu, what is shidu? Master Gu did not answer immediately. Instead, he let go of my hands and counted a few times with his hands. Then he laughed a few times. Interesting, interesting. You kid, you were born with the fingers of a 10-bucket emperor, but your life is a dustpan fate. He is more lucky than alive. Even if he is a king in a turtle pond, he is still a turtle. It won't drown if released into the river, and it won't survive if released into the sea. And the person who makes the soup has to remember it. I was a little confused what he heard, what was this turtle winnowing basket and how to make soup. Just wanted to continue asking. Master Gu uttered, huh, and then his eyes suddenly narrowed. It seemed like it was staring at me, and also seemed like it was staring at my back. The look in Master Gu's eyes was so sharp that it seemed to be able to pierce through the body. I was terrified and shook my shoulders. Master Gu, what are you looking at? After saying that, I looked back to the left and right. There was nothing behind me except an empty sofa. But Master Gu retracted his sharp gaze at this moment, and returned to his initial ease and calmness. A faint smile appeared on his face. He picked up the pipe on the counter and took another puff. Boy, although you have a bad fate, you are born to be harmed by ghosts. But I had accumulated virtue in my previous life and had the help of noble people. If you can live to be 20, you are lucky. I'll give you this talisman. Go away. Master Gu had said before that he would help me for Brother Chen's sake. But after looking at my birth date and palmistry, I was shocked and shocked. Then he said something I didn't quite understand and stopped helping me. It made me feel like I was on a roller coaster and then fell to the bottom. Master Gu, you just said you would help me. If you don't save me, I'll really be dead. I am willing to pay more, please save my life. I was terrified and nervous. Master Gu took a puff of his cigarette and said lightly. Just now was just now, and now is now. Your problem is more serious than I thought. To help you, I will have to pay a huge price, and I might even be dragged into this. If measured by remuneration, it is very high. Do you have money? After saying that, he glanced at me. I took a breath. It seemed that Master Gu wanted money. Master Gu, how much do you need? I still have over 8,000 in my card, how about I give it all to you? This money is my last possession, which I have saved for more than 2 years. I had been thinking about going home to have a good new year this year. But now, we can only spend money to avoid disaster, and the most important thing is to save our lives first. But Master Gu didn't even raise his eyelids and just took 2 puffs of his cigarette. Boy, you have a serious problem. Saving you cost me a lot. 8,000 yuan is not enough. For the sake of that kid Chen Xiong, 100,000 please. If you can collect 100,000 yuan before dark today, I will save you. 100,000. It was like a thunderclap in a clear sky, exploding above my head. How could I possibly gather such a large sum of money in just a few hours? I stood there for a long time. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became quiet. The only sounds were the sizzling sound of the burning tobacco when Master Gu smoked and my heavy breathing. My expression changed, I felt helpless and helpless. Finally I sighed and forced a smile. I compromised and accepted my fate. Borrowing money is like borrowing life. Borrowing 100,000 in a few hours is harder than climbing to the sky. You also have to endure other people's contempt and sarcasm. Although I want to live, I want to be there for my grandma until she passes away. But I also know that it is impossible to borrow 100,000 yuan in a few hours. I have a disease, a poverty disease. I didn't cry and kneel down to beg Master Gu to save me. Life is cheap, but I also want to give myself some dignity and backbone. His eyes turned red, and he bowed to Master Gu bitterly. Forget it, Master Gu. I accept my fate. Sorry for disturbing you. His voice was choked with sobs and he forced a smile. After saying that, I turned and left. But just as I was about to take a step, Master Gu's voice rang out from behind me. Boy, my shop is in need of an apprentice to do odd jobs. Do you dare to follow me and eat a bowl of dead food? Kill the ghost that is haunting you with your own hands. When I suddenly heard these words, my body trembled and I stopped. What does this mean? Master Gu wants to save me. And he wants to take me as his apprentice? Although I don't know why Master Gu suddenly changed his mind and was willing to accept me as his disciple. But when the opportunity came, how could I miss it? Without thinking too much, I turned around quickly. With some excitement and ferocity. Dare, what is there to be afraid of? That thing has caused me a lot of trouble. He almost killed me and Brother Chen, and now he is strangling me. What else am I afraid of? If I had the ability, I would definitely kill her. I have been feeling depressed for too long, and now I have to speak out. At the same time, I calmed down. I feel like it's not that simple for Master Gu to suddenly say he wants to take me in as his apprentice. I am just an ordinary person, and a dying person at that. Why did Master Gu suddenly stop accepting money and was willing to take me in as his disciple and save my life? There is no free lunch in the world. Is it because I'm handsome? I don't believe it myself. So, I continued. Master Gu, if you accept me as your disciple, do you have any other conditions? Master Gu laughed a few times after hearing what I said, and then continued calmly. Smart. You are quite intelligent. Just now I saw that you were quite strong-willed and calm, and were not frightened by death. You can try to cultivate it. But in a word, it is impossible for you to become my apprentice for free and for me to help you for nothing. So, before you become my disciple, let me really save you. I have to test you to see if you really have the courage to not fear death, the heart to not fear ghosts, and the fate to eat the food of the dead. Chapter 17 Conditions. Master Gu spoke calmly while shaking off the ashes from his cigarette. At the end, he added lightly. Of course, the test has dangers. It may cause you to die faster and more miserably. Even death without a complete body. Even if you pass, you may not be able to learn my skills. Moreover, you have to sign a salary advance deduction contract with me. You have to work in my shop for at least 5 years, 365 days a year, with a monthly salary of 3,000 yuan, but I only pay you 500 yuan. The remaining 2,500 will be used to offset the cost of rescuing you. 5 years is exactly 150,000, 100,000 in principal and 50,000 in interest. Penalty for breach of contract, 300,000. You may disagree, but I do. If you leave this door, you won't live past tomorrow morning. Even if you recite the entire Diamond Sutra, you will not be able to see the sun tomorrow morning. Master Gu spoke slowly without even looking at me. After shaking off the ashes, he refilled the cigarette with tobacco, lit it and took another puff. I stood there, feeling helpless. Master Gu is not as bad as imagined, but he is not as good as imagined either. Let us not talk about whether I can pass Master Gu's test. Even if it passes, it's saved. The next 5 years may not be easy. The 5-year contract is for work all year round, with a penalty of 500 yuan per month and 300,000 yuan. To put it bluntly, they wanted me to sign a 5-year indenture. Sell my next 5 years to Master Gu, only then will he save me. Now, there are only 2 paths before me. Either go out and wait for death, or be killed by the female ghost tonight and take her life. Or just agree to Master Gu and give it a try. Complete his test, get his help, and work for him for the next 5 years. For me now, this multiple choice question is not difficult to choose. So I didn't hesitate too much and immediately said to Master Gu. Master Gu, as long as I can survive, I choose to accept the test. Master Gu raised his head only after hearing my agreement. He glanced at me, smiled slightly and said slowly. Okay. Go to the Chenghuang Temple in Longgangzi, Chinko tonight and help me sell some rice and eggs. After listening to it, I felt a little confused. Selling rice and eggs, what kind of test is this? Is he deliberately letting me off the hook, or is there something else going on? With doubts. Master Gu, selling rice and eggs. How to go to Chinko Longgangzi? That place seems to have been demolished, and there is no one there. As soon as I finished speaking, my heart suddenly tightened. Suddenly, it came to my mind. If you sell things in a place where there is no one, who should you sell them to? Master Gu looked at my shocked expression and laughed a few times. Yes, only rice and eggs. As long as you go, there will definitely be customers. But you have to buy the rice and eggs at the Rose supermarket in Nanshan Cemetery. I felt a little uncomfortable listening to it. Who the hell has nothing better to do than open a supermarket in a cemetery? I have basically guessed who Master Gu asked me to sell the things to. It's almost certain that it's dirty. Master Gu probably wanted to test my courage and determination through this matter. After all, Master Gu makes a living by dealing with the dead, and his business is all about the dead, and he also takes on supernatural and weird matters. If I want to stay here and do odd jobs, I must be brave. I was still more or less nervous, but I had to survive. Now we can only go ahead with it. I took a deep breath and then said, Master Gu, besides these, is there anything else that we should pay attention to? How should I sell the things? How much should I sell them for? After all, you are dealing with dirty things, so it won't go wrong to ask for more details. Master Gu exhaled a puff of smoke and spoke in a low voice. It's simple. You just need to be there before 10 p.m. Arrange the rice and eggs, light the incense, and lie down under the altar. No matter what happens, don't come out. But if someone asks you what you do, just say you are selling goods and will leave after staying one night. If someone asks you how you sell your goods, just say rice for money and eggs for medicine. The money is just old money, and the medicine is just old medicine. You can leave the temple and come back at 6 o'clock the next morning. Remember, rice should be sold for 10 coins, and eggs should be exchanged for 10 medicines. I listened to Master Gu very carefully and remembered every word he said. In my heart, I kept repeating it silently. Master Gu saw me mumbling for a while and asked, Have you memoized everything? Remember Master Gu? I nodded in confirmation. Then, Master Gu was seen taking out 2 black paper bowls from the drawer behind the counter. He took out 3 short incense sticks and handed them to me. Take this, light the incense when you enter the temple. Rice and eggs are placed in paper bowls. I took the short incense stick and paper bowl with a little trepidation. Master Gu continued calmly. Rose Supermarket opens after dark, so you have to be at the temple before 10 o'clock. Otherwise you won't be able to enter the temple, and the thing that is haunting you will take your life. It's getting late now, go get ready yourself. After saying that, Master Gu ignored me, turned around and went into the inner room with his pipe in his mouth. I looked at Master Gu who was leaving and said, Master Gu, I can definitely accomplish this. I didn't hesitate any longer and turned around and left Huangquan Road. After going out, I searched the location of Nanshan Cemetery on the map. Found out it's still a bit far. Moreover, Nanshan Cemetery and Longgangshan City God Temple are located in the south and north respectively, and are dozens of miles apart. In terms of time, it may be a bit rushed. But in order to survive, I could only do what Master Guan said. First go to Nanshan Cemetery and look for the Rose Supermarket that only opens at night. Chapter 18 Cemetery. When we left Huangquan Road, it was already 3:30 in the afternoon. It was still early before dark, but I didn't want to waste any time. I bought a bottle of mineral water at the nearby store, called an online taxi, and went directly to Nanshan Cemetery. The journey was supposed to take more than an hour, but because of the traffic jam, it took more than 2 hours. By the time I arrived at Nanshan Cemetery, it was already past 6 in the afternoon. There is still about half an hour before dark. Nanshan Cemetery is right in front of you. The gate archway was built in a grand and solemn manner, with white pillars, green tiles, and dragon and phoenix carvings. Well balanced and symmetrical. On the left and right sides, there are stone-carved couplets written in gold. First couplet, live as long as 1,000 years, like a tortoise or a crane. Second line, blessings to future generations. Horizontal banner, happiness and longevity return. Behind the gate archway is a white tombstone, layer upon layer, stretching to the top of the mountain. The cemetery is very large. At this moment, many people come in and out to pay tribute to their deceased relatives. The cemetery is in the shade, and except for the sun at noon, it is shrouded in shadows the rest of the time. As soon as I got here, I shivered and felt cold. In addition, I have been plagued by dirty things during this period of time, so I feel very resistant to this kind of place. If possible, I really don't want to come to this kind of place. But there was really no other choice but to bite the bullet and walk towards the cemetery. Because I don't know the exact location of the Rose Supermarket, and the cemetery is so big. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to find the place after entering and would waste time wandering around inside. After arriving at the gate, he asked the security guard on duty, "Uncle, where is the Rose Supermarket?" The security guard was sitting in the booth watching the video. Suddenly, when I asked, he turned his head with some confusion. What supermarket are you looking for? The Rose supermarket is located in your cemetery, I said seriously. But the security guard had a strange expression on his face twitching, and he looked me up and down. Are you sure you're in the right place? This is a cemetery. When he asked this question, I was a little confused. Master Gu said that the Rose supermarket is inside the Nanshan cemetery. It also clearly states that the supermarket is only open in the evening. This uncle works as a security guard here, doesn't he know? Uncle, I'm not in the wrong place. It's Nanshan Cemetery. Don't you know there's a Rose supermarket in the cemetery? I asked back with a suspicious look on my face. But the security guard rolled his eyes at me. This is a cemetery, a mausoleum, where the dead are buried. Who has nothing better to do than to open a supermarket in a cemetery? Selling ghosts? I have worked as a security guard in Nanshan Cemetery for 10 years, and I have never heard of any Rose supermarket. It's at Nanshan store, turn left after entering the door. After saying that, the security guard closed the sliding window rudely and muttered a few words. It seems like he is calling me an idiot. He continued to cross his legs, leaning back in his chair and watching the TV series on his mobile phone. I stood outside the window awkwardly. A strange feeling welled up in my heart. I even began to wonder if Master Gu had gone to the wrong place. At first glance, apart from the dense tombstones, there were indeed no buildings such as houses. Moreover, the security guard who has worked here for 10 years didn't he even know about Rose supermarket. Does this place really exist? I was a little confused, so I found 2 cemetery cleaning ladies to ask. The answers obtained are the same. There is nothing else in this cemetery except this small shop at the entrance. There are no supermarkets around, not to mention street vendors, let alone a supermarket inside the cemetery. The cleaning lady was kind enough to remind me that it was getting dark. The area around the cemetery is not clean. I was told not to wander around the cemetery. It is easy to get lost. After saying that, the 2 cleaning ladies went off work with their small bags on their backs. I stayed where I was, with a blank look on my face. Who should I trust now? I left in a hurry today and forgot to leave Master Gu's phone number. Brother Chen's phone was also turned off. Now I want to ask, it is not possible to reconfirm the address. If you take the bus back and ask, then come out to buy rice and eggs. Then I ran to Longgangshan City God Temple to sell them, but it was definitely too late. I covered my head and kept thinking about Master Gu's words. However, I don't think I remembered it wrongly. It can even be clearly confirmed that what Master Gu was talking about at the time was the Nanshan Cemetery. It is also said that Rose supermarket only opens after dark. After I bought the rice and eggs, I had to hurry on my way and must be at the temple by 10 o'clock. Could it be that the security guard and the cleaning lady both lied to me? Master Gu is lying to me? Or, they didn't lie to me. Since this Rose supermarket is opened in such a large cemetery, there must be something special about it. My brows were tightly furrowed together, and I felt very nervous. For a moment I was in a dilemma. Should I take a bus back to Wonfutang immediately and ask for the address again? Or should I stay and search on my own? It was beginning to get dark now and I was running out of time. He stood there for a few minutes, finally drank a sip of mineral water and threw the bottle aside. Crackling sound. He gritted his teeth and decided to believe what Master Gu said. Even if I die in this Nanshan cemetery, I will accept it. Thinking about this, he took a long breath. He raised his feet and walked towards the cemetery. Chapter 19 Tombstone. The sky gradually darkened, and it was even darker here in the shade. There are no street lights in the cemetery, and it gets darker the further you go inside. Looking over there are only white tombstones and stone steps, which looks eerie. Occasionally, an evening breeze blows by, making the place even cooler. The cemetery is very big and I don't know where the Rose supermarket is, so I can only move forward. We walked along the stone path and took a walk around the foot of the mountain. There was nothing to be seen except the tombstone. It was completely dark. Except for the dim light in the security booth at the entrance of the cemetery. The entire cemetery was shrouded in darkness. Plus there is no moon tonight, so visibility is very poor. There was a buzzing sound in the darkness, and the surroundings were extremely quiet. Apart from the sound of my footsteps and breathing, there was not even the sound of insects. The temperature dropped very quickly and I felt colder and colder. Goosebumps appeared on my arms. Looking at the black and white photos of men, women, young and old pasted on the tombstones, I feel creepy. I felt reluctant to move forward and really wanted to leave here. But I have no other choice. If I want to survive, I have to complete the test that Master GU gives me. Otherwise, I'll have to lie here tonight. I turned on the flashlight on my phone and hummed a song quietly, mustering up my courage. He kept speeding up his pace and moving forward in the cemetery to search. From the bottom of the mountain, I climbed all the way up the mountain. Forget about finding a supermarket, this place is just as the security guard and cleaning lady described. In addition to tombstones and cemeteries, there is even an extra building. At this time, I stood on the stone steps, continuing to search anxiously. At this time, a thin layer of mist rose in the cemetery. It made the already gloomy environment even more creepy. The black and white photos around me seemed to be looking at me and smiling at me. My back still feels cold, and the feeling is so depressing and uncomfortable. I subconsciously shrank my neck and even humming became difficult. I was so nervous that cold sweat broke out on my forehead. No, there's nothing here either. Did I really remember the address wrong? I frowned and muttered to myself. Shaking the light, he continued to move upwards. Because I was concentrating on finding the Rose supermarket, I didn't pay any attention to my feet. I accidentally stepped on something and slipped. With a loud bang, it fell directly onto the stone aisle. After the fall, my whole body was numb and the phone screen was broken, but fortunately it can still be used. Ouch! I sat up in pain and touched my elbow with my hand. I looked back and found a few red apples on the ground. I just stepped on an apple and fell down. Next to the apples was an overturned fruit basket with all the fruit falling out. I took a photo with my mobile phone and found out that these fruits were offerings to a 5-year-old girl named Li Lingling. Although the photo is in black and white, the child looks chubby. She wears 2 cat ear hairbands, which makes her look very pretty and cute. It's a pity that it died so young and cute. This period of time made me believe that the soul exists after death. The dead are the greatest, and I even stepped on someone else's apple. So he endured the pain in his arm and hurriedly gathered the apples scattered on the aisle and put them in the fruit basket. Then put the fruit basket back in place. He put his hands together and said to the tombstone, "I'm sorry, little sister. I didn't mean to step on your apple. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." After saying this, he bowed 3 times to the child's tombstone. But after I bowed and looked up, I seemed to see the blurry black and white photo of the child, and he pouted at me. Although it was cute, this scene scared me a lot. He stepped back quickly, his face frozen. I quickly rubbed my eyes with my hands and found that I was still smiling in the photo, nothing had changed. But I was panicking. Not wanting to stay any longer, he swallowed and stammered, "Sorry to bother you." After saying that, I stepped back and ran up the mountain. I finally breathed a sigh of relief after running more than 10 meters. But the mountain was very flat, and apart from dozens of tombstones, I really didn't see any supermarket. Now, I have searched the entire cemetery. I didn't even see the Rose supermarket. I felt like I had heard it wrong and came to the wrong place. I felt a little desperate and covered my forehead. I started walking down the mountain feeling very lost. However, when I passed by the grave of little girl Li Lingling again, I just felt a chill on my back and someone pulled the corner of my clothes. I was already nervous, and this sudden feeling scared me so much that I shrank my body and turned around quickly to look back. But when I turned around, I was completely disappointed. I saw a pale little girl standing behind me. She was wearing a white dress and had 2 cat ears, but her pupils were grey. I was so scared that I screamed on the spot, my heart in my throat. He stepped back repeatedly, putting some distance between himself and her. In the middle of the night, a little girl suddenly appeared and pulled my clothes. Besides, I recognized it immediately. This girl is the poor child named Li Lingling who died at the age of 5. Chapter 20, Pointing the Way. At this moment, I looked at the little girl in panic, feeling a little at a loss for a moment. The little girl looked at me in horror and didn't say anything. Just a very pale smile. A pair of grey eyes looked at me innocently. At the same time, he raised his hand and pointed to my left, as if wanting me to go that way. I looked at the little girl and knew exactly what she was. However, her smile and actions did not make me feel more afraid. It had a completely different feeling from the female ghost I encountered. I suppressed my nervousness and stammered. "Little sister, are you asking me to go to the left?" The little girl still didn't say anything, but just smiled and nodded. I looked to the left, but there was thick fog over there and I couldn't see far. There are only rows of tombstones. But I felt the little girl's kindness. Perhaps she was showing me the way. I nodded tremblingly. His throat was a little dry and hoarse. "Well." After saying that, I moved to the left. He took a few steps back, then turned and ran to the left. When I ran a distance and looked back again, the little girl was nowhere to be seen, and behind her there was nothing but rows of white tombstones. I shuddered, turned back and continued walking forward. I just walked this road and there was nothing there except tombstones. But the little girl asked me to go this way. Could it be that the Rose supermarket I'm looking for is in this direction? Or is this a road of no return? I smiled bitterly. It has come to this, even if it is a dead end, do I still have any choice? I have been pushed to the brink of life and death, and I have no right to make my own choices. Instead of searching randomly, it is better to trust this little girl. The road ahead was getting darker and darker, and my phone was running out of battery. I could only grope my way in the dark, looking at the slightly whitish stone slabs. There was nothing around except the tombstones and the sound of my thump-thump footsteps. The fog around me was getting thicker and thicker, and I felt like I had been walking on this road for more than 10 minutes and there was still no end in sight. I remember walking this road before and it only took me 5 minutes to reach the end. But now, why have we walked for so long and haven't reached the end yet? I shrank my neck and quickened my pace. After walking for about 3 to 5 minutes, I vaguely discovered a faint red light in the darkness. The red light is particularly eye-catching in the dark night. I squinted my eyes and continued to quicken my pace. The red light grew brighter and brighter, until finally I started to jog. Finally, I saw the source of the red light clearly. There seemed to be a small house there, with a red lantern hanging in front of it. The light I saw was emitted by the lantern. After wandering around the cemetery for so long, I finally saw some buildings other than the tombstones, and I felt a little excited. Hurrying forward. Finally, I made a pleasantly surprised discovery. This is the place I'm looking for, Rose Supermarket. The house is very shabby, it's a small wooden house. There was a sign standing upright in front of the wooden house. There were 4 words written on it in red pen, Rose Supermarket. The red lantern is hanging on the supermarket signboard. Seeing this, I took a long breath and felt extremely moved. It seems that in addition to good people, there are also good ghosts in the world. For a moment, I felt particularly grateful to the little girl named Li Lingling. If she hadn't shown me the way, I would never have found this place. I calmed myself down and walked forward slowly. He pulled the iron ring in front of the wooden door and knocked. Boom, boom, boom. The sound was very clear and loud in the cemetery. Soon, a hoarse old woman's voice was heard in the room. "Who is it?" The sound is not loud, but it is long and makes people feel uncomfortable. But I still responded. "Boss, buy something." "Oh. Wait." The voice replied, and then there was a rustling sound in the room. After a while, the wooden door opened. Then I saw an 80-year-old woman holding an oil lamp in her hand appear in front of me. The old woman had sparse, gray hair and a hunched body, almost bent at 90 degrees. She raised her head, her face full of wrinkles, and looked me up and down with cloudy eyes. The white light from the oil lamp flickered on her face, looking a little weird. I suppressed my nervousness and said politely, "Auntie, I came here to buy something." After the old woman heard what I said, she laughed a few times with her toothless mouth. "Come in. My small supermarket has had no customers for a long time." After saying that, she turned around slowly and walked in. I swallowed and followed slowly. After the old lady entered the room, she placed the oil lamp on the table. He used an iron rod to poke the wick to make the flame burn more vigorously. Under the flickering flames, I could vaguely see it. There are actually quite a few goods in this small wooden house. But these products are all colorful clothes. "What do you want, young man?" The old woman put down the iron rod and turned to ask me. I did not hesitate and quickly and politely said, "Auntie, I need some rice and some eggs." When the old woman heard me say I wanted these things, she looked me up and down and suddenly laughed. Har har. Hey, young man. The rice I have here is glutinous rice. The eggs I have here are boiled and shelled chick eggs. You buy it but you can't eat it. It would be better to take a look at these funeral clothes sewn by the old woman. The price is not expensive. I think I should be able to wear it in the next 2 days. Chapter 21, Mouse. The old woman giggled and asked me to buy funeral clothes. I feel very unlucky, I am not even dead yet. Why buy shroud? But he still managed to smile and said, Auntie, I don't want burial clothes. I just want to buy rice and eggs and sell them. Sell. The old woman was stunned for a moment and looked at me with some surprise. But soon, it seemed as if I understood something. He didn't let me buy the shroud, but turned around and started walking into the inner room. Wait a minute, I'll get it for you. After saying that, the old woman slowly walked into the inner room. But I vaguely heard what she seemed to be saying. It turned out that she was a middleman. What else are you talking about? Borrowing Yin's life. I don't know if I heard it right or not, but what she said sounded weird. I stood in the room, feeling very uncomfortable. This old wooden house is much more eerie and terrifying than Master Gu's wooden house. Although Master Gu's shop is dark, it also sells funeral clothes, paper figurines and other things. But compared to the old woman's wooden house, it is much more comfortable. There are many strange paper cuts pasted inside the wooden house. It is neither a blessing nor a longevity. Instead, they are some human-shaped paper cuts or ghost face patterns. Not only that, the house is sealed on all sides. But I can still clearly feel the cool breeze. Those various funeral clothes hanging in the room, each one was hung on a hanger. Instead, a thin line similar to hair braiding is used to tie the shoulders. It swayed in the room and appeared from time to time in the light of the fire, which made people feel creepy. I always feel like a person is hanging under the beam, swaying under the light. Just as I was standing in the room, looking around nervously, a black shadow flashed past my feet, like a big black cat. I quickly avoided it. Then I saw the black shadow jump up and onto the table. With the help of the light, I could see clearly what the black shadow was. His face suddenly changed, revealing a look of horror. I saw that the black thing turned out to be a big black rat. The mouse was as big as half a cat. It is fat all over, its tail is longer than chopsticks, its fur is shiny black, and it is not afraid of people. At this moment, its nose twitched, making a sizzle, sizzle sound as a mouse, and its whiskers stood up. He glanced at me with his glowing green eyes. Right in front of me, it raised its front legs and lay down on the base of the oil lamp. He avoided the wick flame, stretched his head and drank the oil in the lamp. The click-click sound is scary. I grew up in the countryside, and I've heard from the older generation that mice would steal and drink lamp oil. But never seen it. Seeing it now, it was such a big rat, and I was shocked. I was stunned for a moment, and then thought about driving the big rat away. Go, get out of here. I threatened to scare the mouse away. But who would have thought that this big rat was not only not afraid of people, but also turned its head away after drinking a few sips of lamp oil. He stood on his hind legs, his whole body erect. He grinned at me, showing 2 rat teeth, and glared at me viciously. Make a squeaking sound. It was the first time I saw a mouse being aggressive towards people and even standing on its hind legs. I was very surprised. I have been haunted by ghosts recently and I am afraid of ghosts everywhere. But I am not afraid of this beast. Brute. Seeing a clothes measuring tape nearby, he grabbed it and prepared to hit it. But at this moment, the hoarse voice of the old woman was heard in the room. Don't hit it, boy. When I heard the old woman's voice, I stopped abruptly. Then, the old woman was seen walking out slowly from the inner room carrying a small cloth bag. When the big rat saw the old woman appear, it jumped down and jumped off the table. Shunzi followed the old woman's feet and climbed up directly to the old woman's shoulders. Then he used his head to rub the old woman's ears continuously. The old woman smiled and raised her hand to touch the big rat. At the same time, some reproachful words were spoken. You greedy fellow. I told you, don't come out when there are guests. It's not like everyone knows you, but you just one tea listen. If I hurt you, how will I live? After saying that, he grabbed the big rat with one hand and held it in his arms. I saw it with my own eyes, and it felt like my worldview was destroyed. This big rat is actually the old woman's pet. I have seen people keeping cats, dogs, and lizards, but this is the first time I have seen someone keeping a big rat as a pet. Auntie, is this the pet you feed? I am amazed. The old woman laughed a few times. This is not a pet, this is my son. Son. I spoke with a stutter, a strange look in my eyes, and I felt completely unnatural. But the old woman did not explain too much, and continued. Young man, everything you want is in there. After saying that, he handed me the small cloth bag. I took it and looked, and found more than a dozen peeled hard-boiled eggs still steaming inside. Next to it was a bag of glutinous rice wrapped in a plastic bag. I was happy when I saw that I had bought the things. Not much attention was paid to the big rat that the old woman raised and called itself her son. After all, many people who keep cats and dogs call their pets their babies, or little ones, which is very common in the outside world. It could just be that this old lady has different interests and hobbies and likes to raise mice. I saw that I had got the things, so I took out the money. How much are these things? After listening to this, the old woman waved her hand. Hey boy, my supermarket doesn't charge money. No charge. Free. I was stunned. But the old woman shook her head again and continued with a fake smile. Not free, no money. I just want your nails. Chapter 22 Nails. I looked weird and surprised. No money, but my fingernails. What is this thing for? Can it be eaten? I looked at my fingernails and I feel very nervous these days. It has not been trimmed for several days, so it is a bit long. But the other party looked very serious and even took out a pair of large scissors. Young man, you can't lose any of the 10 nails. As the old woman finished her words, the big rat in her arms stretched out its head. It squeaked at me in a strange way, looking very excited. I felt a little disgusted with the big rat, and was also a little confused about this deal. But the thought of this supermarket is weird. We certainly cannot speculate on the operating methods of this supermarket using the methods of a regular supermarket, so there is no need to worry too much. Nodding somewhat awkwardly. Good. Put down the cloth bag in your hand and pick up the big black scissors. He cut his fingernails on a piece of red paper. The room was quiet and chilly. There was only the click sound from me cutting my nails. The old woman was still standing nearby, sticking her head out and giving instructions. Cut it longer. I was so embarrassed. I was cutting close to the flesh, and if it grew any longer I would have to cut off a piece of flesh. Under the old woman's harsh demands, all 10 nails were trimmed very quickly. Put down the big scissors and hand over the nails on the red paper. Auntie, these are the nails you wanted. The old woman smiled. Well. As she spoke, she took the red paper with her wrinkled old hands. Seeing that the transaction was completed, I picked up the cloth bag and was about to leave. I'm pressed for time and can't waste too much time here. Moreover, there is an indescribable weirdness about this place. But who would have known that as soon as the old woman got my broken nails, she unfolded them and handed them to the big rat. He said happily. Eat it quickly. Eating it will increase your lifespan and make you taller, he. The big rat poked its head out, opened its mouth and started eating my broken nails. Crackle, sound kept chewing in the mouth. The hairless tail swayed easily from side to side. That scene made my scalp tingle and my hair stand on end. My face changed slightly and I swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He took a few steps back, then turned around and ran out of the house. It's so weird. As soon as I went out, the half-open wooden door closed with a clang. Even so, I seemed to be able to see it. The image of the giant rat chewing my nails while wagging its hairless tail. I felt frightened and uncomfortable, and walked forward nervously. After a while, the cabin could no longer be seen behind him except for gusts of fog and the red light of lanterns. Look at the time, it's 8:40 p.m. There is still more than an hour until 10 o'clock. Now my phone is out of battery and I can't call a ride-hailing car. So I have to hurry, otherwise I might not be able to get to the city god temple in Longgang Mountain before 10 o'clock. I quickened my pace and ran down the aisle of the cemetery. Soon, we arrived at the fork in the road where we met the little girl before. It took me more than 10 minutes to walk there just now. Now it only takes about 3 to 5 minutes to get back. This road is very strange, but I can't explain why. It was empty here. Apart from the tombstone, there was no trace of the little girl. But in my heart, I am also particularly grateful to the little girl named Li Lingling. If she hadn't shown me the way, I might not have been able to find the Rose supermarket all night. I came to her grave and bowed to her. Thank you, little sister. If my brother could still live in the future, he will definitely come to burn incense for you someday. Having said that, I'm about to leave. But at this moment, a red apple suddenly rolled out from the fruit basket in front of her grave. The red apple rolled right in front of my toes. I looked at it with some surprise, then looked up at the cute little girl in the black and white photo on the tombstone. I felt like I understood what she meant. I bent down and picked up the apple from the ground. Little sister, are you going to treat me to an apple? There was no sound in response, but I could feel a faint cool breeze blowing towards my face. In the past, I always felt scared when I felt this kind of cool breeze. But at this moment, not only was I not scared, but my nervousness was relieved a lot. Thank you, little sister. If I could live, I would definitely keep my word. After saying that, I took a bite without caring whether the apple was dirty or not. I haven't eaten anything for a whole day, and this apple tastes incredibly sweet. Without stopping for long, he turned around and ran towards the cemetery exit. When I arrived at the foot of the mountain, looking back again, there was nothing but tombstones all over the mountain. He took a deep breath, feeling the coolness in the air, and ran outside. The security guard at the security booth was still watching TV and didn't notice me. I left the cemetery and ran along the road. Now I just want to find a car and get to Longgang Mountain as soon as possible to complete the task assigned to me by Master Gu. But Nanshan Cemetery is in the suburbs, and it took me 10 to 20 minutes to get there by foot, let alone by car. There was not even a shadow of a person in sight. I looked at the time anxiously. It was almost 9:10 and I still couldn't find a car. If this continues, I will definitely not be able to get to the city god temple before 10 o'clock. Master Gu has made it clear that once it's past 10 o'clock, the female ghost that has been haunting me will definitely appear. If she comes again, I will really be dead. I pressed the power button frantically, hoping that the battery of the phone would be strong enough for me to hail a taxi at a high price. But who knew, just when I was extremely anxious, one looked very shabby. And the van, which didn't even have taillights, suddenly stopped in front of me. I didn't even notice it was coming from behind me. It was quite abrupt and just appeared like that. Before I could react, a middle-aged man with a pale face and sweaty forehead rolled down the window. He shouted at me. "Little brother, is this the car you called?" Chapter 23: Taking a Taxi. I was running on the suburban road, worrying about how to find a car. A broken van suddenly appeared in front of me. Although it appeared a little abruptly, I was pleasantly surprised to see the car. The driver just stuck his head out and asked me, "Is this the car we called?" I can't even afford to drive my cell phone, how can I call a taxi? Besides, I'm the only one here, so where is there us? But at this moment, I don't care who called the car, or what first come first served is fair or unfair. Get in the car first and go to Longgang Mountain to save your life. I just lied. Yes, I called a car. I walked up quickly and opened the car door with my hand. I found that the car was very old, with rust all over the surface and the doors were difficult to open. My car is older, use more force. The driver smiled and spoke. I nodded. Aha! Hold the basket tightly and pull it back hard. After a few clicks, he opened the sliding door and crawled in. The car must be very old, with rust all over the interior. There is only one front light in the cab, and it is rather dim. The interior of the car was pitch black, the roof and lampshade were shattered, and several thin wires were exposed. I even wondered if it was a scrapped car. Moreover, there was a strong fishy smell in the car. It smells like there were a few dead fish in the car. I frowned, suppressed the urge to vomit, sat in my seat, and closed the car door with difficulty. At this time, it was discovered that there was only one person in the car besides the driver. There was also a long-haired woman sitting in the passenger seat, wearing white clothes and a black mask. I didn't pay too much attention to it, thinking that it might be the driver's friend or guest or something. The most important thing now is to go to Longgang Mountain. Brother, let's go to Longgang Mountain. Drive faster. I'm in a hurry. I spoke anxiously. The driver smiled at the rearview mirror. I'll try to drive as fast as possible while keeping it safe. After saying that, the driver started the van. But I feel like this van is a bit weird. When I rode in a van before, I could always hear a loud engine noise, buzzing. The car also shook constantly and was quite bumpy. But this broken van looks rather shabby. After starting, you can hardly hear any loud engine noise, and the ride isn't even very bumpy. It feels much smoother and quieter than taking the factory commuter bus. Although I work in a car factory, I don't know much about cars. I think the driver is a good driver. The road outside is also flat, so it's not bumpy. Plus the stench in the car, I didn't have time to pay much attention. I just wanted to roll down the window and get some fresh air, it was too smelly. It turned out that the window handle was broken, the car door was covered with black water stains, and it smelled bad. Little brother, the handle of my bike is broken and I haven't had time to fix it yet. If I want some fresh air, I'll open the front window. Okay, thanks bro. After saying that, I glanced at the rearview mirror inside the car. I noticed that the masked woman in the passenger seat was looking at me through the rearview mirror. Only then could I see the general appearance of the masked woman. She folded her arms, her skin was very white, although her full appearance could not be seen clearly. But a pair of phoenix eyes are very beautiful. The eyes are like clear springs and like autumn water. It was so clear and vivid that it attracted me at first sight. I just feel that this woman's eyes are so beautiful, right? Even with a mask on, you can tell that she is definitely a beauty. But it was just a glance, and the other person turned his head to look out the car window. I looked away embarrassedly. The driver rolled down the window and the evening breeze blew into the car. Although it was a bit cold, the fishy smell was slightly reduced. I sat in the back seat, looking at the time from time to time, feeling quite anxious. The driver saw that I was very nervous and suddenly asked me, "Little brother, why are you going to Huangquan Mountain so late? I remember that place, it seems to have been demolished and now it is a wasteland." I was stunned for a moment, and evaded the question. "Oh, I have some friends camping over there and asked me to come over and play." Oh. After the driver asked this question, he started talking. A man was talking to himself there. They said they were a night train driver, and a few days ago one of their cars lost control and rushed into a creek. The driver failed to climb out and drowned in the water. When the body was found, it was soaked and rotten. My eyes were pecked and eaten by fish, it was so miserable. As he spoke, he seemed to still be very hot and kept wiping the sweat off his face. I was already feeling uneasy, so I didn't say anything even though I heard the creepy talk. The masked woman sitting in the passenger seat also seemed to be uncomfortable listening to what she said. He coughed twice. The driver thought we didn't want to hear it, so he just laughed a few times and didn't continue. The car became quiet again. The car windows were covered with black film, so I couldn't see the scenery outside clearly. All I could see through the front windshield were two beams of light and the dim road. The vehicle just kept driving along, and there were even very few vehicles encountered along the way. Occasionally, I would look at the woman in the passenger seat through the rearview mirror. After looking out the window for a while, she closed her eyes and leaned back in the chair to rest. I also want to take a rest. I'm really tired these days. But I just couldn't fall asleep even with my eyes closed, leaning back in the seat. It seemed like a short while later, the driver shouted to me, "Little brother, we're here." He opened his eyes only when he heard the driver suddenly speak. I noticed the car had stopped. I didn't even feel the car slow down. I looked at the time, it was 9:40. It was faster than expected, so we had plenty of time to reach the city god temple. I was surprised and asked hurriedly, "Brother, how much is the fare?" The driver smiled. "Night shifts are more expensive, and usually you have to come back empty-handed to do this. Just give me 180. 180 is indeed a bit expensive. Normally 100 yuan would be enough. But I'm in a hurry and saving my life is more important. If I delay any longer, the female ghost that is haunting me will appear. I don't care about the $80 anymore and I'm too lazy to bargain." He took out $200 bills and handed them over. The driver took the $200 with a smile. He gave me $20 from my wallet. But the money he gave me was wet and damp. I didn't pay much attention to it. He glanced at it, put it in his pocket, opened the door and got out of the car. Chapter 24, Climbing. As I got out of the car, I glanced at the passenger seat. I found that the woman wearing a mask sitting in the passenger seat had gotten off the car at some point. Although her eyes are beautiful and left a deep impression on me. But at this moment, staying alive is the most important thing. Without thinking too much, I opened the door and got out of the car quickly. The van also turned around and quickly disappeared from my sight. Looking back at the hill in front of us, it is Longgang Mountain. It was said that this place looked like a dragon's back from a distance, so it was given this name. I have been here once before and have a rough idea of where the city god temple is. Without any hesitation, he rushed up the mountain carrying the black cloth bag. Fortunately, the moon that was covered by dark clouds was now half exposed, and their view was wider. It is not so pitch black that you cannot tell the direction. There used to be a village here, with a few scattered residents. But now they have all been demolished, and all that remains are dilapidated houses, weeds and wasteland. Under the moonlight, it looks very desolate, dilapidated, even gloomy. I walked along the hillside path, going up the mountain. The higher you go, the denser the weeds become. A long section of the trail was covered with weeds, half a person's height. Fortunately, I have already seen the city god temple on the mountainside, so I should be able to make it in time. The road was difficult to walk on, and I could only pull out the weeds while moving forward. Gusts of night wind blew by, and the weeds and trees rustled. Not only that, at this time, a strange coo-coo-coo sound was heard above my head. I looked up subconsciously and was shocked. I saw two green eyes on a dead tree, staring at me. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was an owl. It twisted its head 180 degrees, stared at me, and made a cooing sound at me. The sound was very urgent, in this desolate mountain and wilderness. It made me feel goosebumps all over and very uncomfortable. But there was no way I was going to fight an owl. I can only speed up my pace and keep moving forward. But not long after walking out, the owl's cuckoo sound suddenly changed. It became higher and higher, and sounded like someone was laughing with their throat pinched. Chuck, chuck, chuck. The sound was so terrifying that it made one's scalp tingle. There is a proverb in many places that says, "I'm not afraid of the owl's cry, but I'm afraid of its smile." If it laughs, there will definitely be a funeral and someone will die. This beast was laughing at me non-stop, making me, who was already nervous, even more uneasy. He picked up a stone and threw it at it. The owl was frightened and flapped its wings. It flew away with a puff puff. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw the owl leave, and turned around to continue walking forward. But when I turned around, I was shocked. Because the moment I turned around, I found that there was an extra person less than 2 meters in front of me, and I didn't know when he appeared. The man was holding a cane, wearing a grey suit and a grey turban. It seemed to be an old lady, who was standing in front of me with her head slightly lowered. I didn't even know when she showed up. "Arr!" I screamed instinctively and jumped back a step, looking terrified. During this time, I've come across a lot of dirty stuff. The first thing I did was to look down at the person's shadow to make sure if she was dirty. Although the moon is not very bright, but with the help of moonlight. But I can clearly see that this old lady has a shadow. Seeing this, I breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it wasn't dirty. Before I could speak, the old lady who had her head slightly lowered slowly raised her head. When I looked up, I found that something was wrong with this old lady. She has a very pointed face, no flesh on her face, and her face frame is sunken. Pouting, it feels like it has a small mouth, but it has red lips. The eyes are long and thin, with only a slit. There are also very heavy dark circles under the eyes, and it looks like smoky makeup. His face was full of wrinkles and his facial features were squeezed together. This face feels weird no matter how you look at it. Even looking at it, it doesn't feel like a human face at all. It looks more like a fox face. Before I could come to my senses, the old lady suddenly gave me a strange smile. He spoke in a very shrill voice. "Young man, do I look like a human to you?" When I heard this, my head buzzed. A feeling of fear washed over me, and I felt a fear of the old lady in front of me. I was so scared that I took 2 steps back again. Although I didn't believe in ghosts and gods before, I had heard many bizarre folk stories. One of them is called asking for a title. It is said that they are some beasts in the mountains, absorbing and exhaling the essence of the sun and the moon all day long. Once they become powerful, they will come out to ask for a title. Randomly find passers-by and ask, "Does it look like a human?" As long as it is said to be similar, then it can attain enlightenment and reach a higher level. If it doesn't look like it, then all its efforts will be wasted and it will need to start all over again. Before, I just thought of it as a bizarre story and didn't think it existed. But now, I don't think so. Even damn ghosts exist, let alone some powerful beasts. I looked at the old lady in front of me and felt very nervous. I wanted to speak, but my throat was dry and hoarse. And this old lady laughed strangely at me twice, then grinned and moved closer. When she took a step, I realized that her feet were not human feet at all. It was a pair of big yellow claws of a wild beast, now just wearing a pair of human pants. At this moment, it moved its strange face closer to me. It showed an expression that it thought was very kind. In a sharp voice, she continued to ask me, "Young man, do I look like a human to you?" Chapter 25, Seeking a Title. Looking at the strange-looking old woman with a pair of big claws approaching step by step. She kept asking me if she looked like a human. I was terrified and frightened. Who was this person? It's clearly an old fox from the mountains. I was terrified and my instinct told me that she was a piece of shit, just an old fox. But I heard the story of asking for a title when I was a child. Now thinking about the story, I know I can't answer that way. If I answer like that, then the old fox's power will be ruined and he will definitely take revenge on me. Just one ghost can cause me to suffer a nervous breakdown and put my life in danger. If I offend an old fox, how can I survive? I held the small cloth bag tightly, feeling nervous and fearful, and subconsciously took 2 steps back. His eyes widened, he swallowed, and wanted to answer. But the old fox lady looked very anxious. "Little brother, please tell me. Do I look like a human?" Her voice was high-pitched and her expression was doubtful. With a slight smile, I could even see the sharp fangs in her mouth. As she moved, she could faintly see a big yellow tail moving behind her. I swallowed nervously and was about to answer that she looked like a human. I could vaguely hear the voice of a strange woman. "Don't say like, say yes, say yes." The sound was very small, almost non-existent. I was still able to glance left and right. It was pitch black all around, with nothing but weeds, not to mention women. It's just me and this old fox lady left. I even felt like I was hallucinating. The old fox lady became a little flustered when she saw that I hadn't spoken yet. His body began to tremble, and the hand holding the crutch began to grow yellow hair at a speed visible to the naked eye. A root, looked scary. The old lady fox looked very anxious and continued to urge me. "Young man, tell me now. Do I look like a human being?" I watched her approaching, her hands still growing hair. He replied with some fear. "Old lady, you are a human being, a human being." Although I tried to suppress the panic in my heart, I still stuttered when the words came to my lips. My back felt cold and cold sweat kept pouring out. But who knew that I had just finished speaking? A strange wind blew up halfway up the mountain. The sound of whoosh whoosh came from behind me and blew towards the old fox lady in front of me. The weeds and trees around also swayed. It makes a crisp sound of swish. But the old fox lady trembled all over. Suddenly he opened his arms and dropped the crutches. Facing the strange wind, I took a deep breath. The tense expression suddenly revealed one of relaxation and comfort. A long sigh came out of his mouth. The old lady fox stood in front of me and I didn't dare to move. There is no road nearby and I have no way to go around. I could only face this old lady. But when I looked at her again, I found that her facial features were not as crowded as before, and seemed to be more expanded. Although it still looks like a fox face, it is much better than before. The hair on the back of my hands has also disappeared. The big claws that were previously exposed have now turned into a pair of human feet, standing on the small stone slab. After the old fox took 9 long breaths, the strange wind disappeared. She also calmed down. At this moment, he picked up the crutches on the ground and looked at me with a smile. With her eyes narrowed into a line and her little red mouth, she said cheerfully, "Young man, you are a good person. You helped Grandma today, so I will naturally repay you. I'm scared just looking at this thing, how can I dare ask for any reward now?" He waved his hands repeatedly and said, No, thank you, thank you." But the old lady fox still smiled. In the Who family, we always avenge our enemies and repay our kindness. "You've done me a favor today, so I'll give you something." After saying this, she held the middle finger of her left hand with her right hand. In front of me, he bent it up, then broke it down and held it in his hand. There was a click sound and it broke. I saw it and my heart skipped a beat. This old fox lady actually broke her own middle finger. I looked at her in surprise, but the old lady fox acted as if nothing had happened. "Hey, young man, take this." After saying that, he stretched out his left hand and spread it out. A bloody finger appeared in her palm. I looked at the bloody finger with a look of shock, and didn't dare to move for a moment. Seeing that I didn't move, the old lady fox laughed again. "Har har. Don't be afraid. Grandma won't hurt you." After saying that, he shook hands. When the old fox lady spread out her hands again, the finger that was bloody just now has turned into a curved fox nail. "Here, keep it in your mouth tonight. When you go sell eggs, those things won't dare touch you." When I heard this, my heart skipped a beat and I was a little surprised. "Old lady fox, you actually knew I was going to sell eggs." Even though I felt a bit jealous towards her, she had said so much to me. I did not hesitate, and summoned my courage to say, "Thank you, Grandma." After saying that, I reached out and took the fox nail from the old lady fox's hand. Chapter 26, The Temple. The fox's nails are only half the length of a lighter, as black as ink and very shiny. It looks like a crescent-shaped black jade. After I got the pour, the old fox nodded with satisfaction, squinting his eyes and smiling at me. "What's your name, young man?" "My name is Jinzi," I answered with a little nervousness. At the moment, it seems that the old lady fox poses no threat to me, so I am not that scared anymore. But still be cautious and vigilant. The old lady fox chuckled a few times. "Jinzi, Grandma remembers your name. But you have to find your lost life yourself. You can't hold on to what others are looking for. Grandma can't interfere too much. Now what are you supposed to do? Go do it. Grandma won't delay you any longer." After saying this, the old fox lady leaned on her walking stick and moved a few steps to the side. Although I don't quite understand what the phrase "you have to find your lost life yourself" means, it can be seen that the old lady fox gave way and no longer hesitated. Holding the fox paw she gave me, I smiled slightly. "Thank you, Grandma." After saying that, I held the half fox paw and the cloth bag and ran towards the city god temple. After running more than 10 meters, he looked back. The old lady fox was found, but she had disappeared. Behind me, it was pitch black, with only swaying weeds and trees. I feel very depressed. When you are unlucky, you may encounter all kinds of weird things. In the first 20 years, I didn't encounter anything. But in the past few days, strange things have happened one after another. Now, in order to survive, I have to go to the temple and do business with dirty things. I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm myself down and face reality better. Increase your pace and speed. Because there are only a few minutes left until 10 o'clock in the evening. Fortunately, the distance was not far, and I quickly arrived in front of the city god temple. This place has been demolished and the city god temple has long been dilapidated. Weeds grew on the roof and some paint had fallen off the walls. The yard was full of weeds and dead leaves. I walked quickly to the front of the temple and pushed open the dilapidated wooden door. Crack! A shrill sound was heard, and a cloud of musty dust rose in the room. I fanned myself with my hands, covered my mouth and nose, and coughed twice. It was chilly and dark in the temple, and the visibility was very poor. I took out my lighter and lit it to take a look. The firelight flickered, and I could barely see the surroundings. The temple was in a state of disarray, with no statues of gods left on the shrines. There was only a stone altar and an overturned stone incense burner. There was a torn yellow cloth covering the altar. Apart from these, the only things left in the entire city god temple were some broken bowls, hay, plastic bags, and other things. According to what Master Gu said, after arriving at the city god temple, the first thing I did was light incense. I took out 3 short incense sticks and lit them quickly. Then he inserted it into the stone incense burner on the altar. The short incense stick flickered and burned very quickly, as if someone was blowing at it. As soon as the incense was lit, the rising smoke spread out and swirled around the temple. I didn't pay too much attention to the short fragrance. Instead, he quickly took out 2 flattened paper bowls. Spread them out with your hands and place them neatly on the ground. Put the rice and eggs bought from Rose's supermarket in separate bowls. I was very quick and finished all of this. The first thing I did was to crawl under the altar and lie down. I looked at the time and it was 1 minute until 10 o'clock in the evening. I suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. After a night of twists and turns, I finally completed what Master Gu asked me to do. All that's left is to wait. I lay motionless under the altar, and could only see 2 black paper bowls through a small gap under the yellow cloth. 10 o'clock arrived in the blink of an eye. It seemed to have become colder in the temple. I lay under the altar, huddled up, and watched the changes in the temple vigilantly. After about half an hour, a cough suddenly sounded in the silent temple. Cough. The sound is not loud, but it is clear. And the sound seemed to come from the altar above my head. When I suddenly heard this voice, my heart suddenly tightened. He raised his head slightly and looked at the altar above his head. It felt like the person who was coughing was sitting there. The old people say, a temple without gods is inhabited by ghosts. There are no statues of gods in this city god temple. Now, apart from me, the only things left are dirt. Although I was mentally prepared. But when I really come into contact with these things, I still can't help but feel scared. I shrank my neck nervously and even lowered my breathing. I don't know how these dirty guys will make a deal with me. About half an hour later, 2 more coughing sounds were heard above my head. Ahem. My heart was filled with anxiety. I gritted my teeth nervously, and dared not move. And after these 2 coughs, I felt like the moonlight coming in from outside the house was blocked. The entire altar was dark. He lowered his head and looked out through the gap under the yellow cloth. When I looked up, I found a pair of black cloth shoes walking towards me on tiptoe. The steps were small and silent. He approached step by step, and finally stood in front of the 2 black paper bowls, motionless. I could clearly feel a chill rushing under the altar. The cold feeling made me shiver. This invisible oppression makes me feel like there is a huge stone pressing on my heart. It was not until a long while later that I noticed that the thing that was lifting its feet slowly bent down. He stretched out a white hand with black nails and slowly grabbed the egg in the black paper bowl. I saw it all but didn't dare make a sound. Because Master Gu said that after entering the city god temple, unless someone asks you a question, you should never speak a word. And that pale human hand was about to grab the egg. But as soon as his hand touched, he suddenly retracted it. It seemed like the egg was very hot and he didn't dare to pick it up. Then, the man was seen standing on tiptoe, pacing back and forth in front of the 2 paper bowls. Several minutes passed. Then I heard a complaining, low voice of an old man. What do you mean, you can only look at it but not eat it? Chapter 27 Selling Goods. I heard complaining and angry voices coming from outside. I was very nervous. Even, a little scared. I was really afraid that thing would rush in, stretch out its pale human hand, and pull me out from under the altar. I was so nervous that I held my breath and didn't dare to breathe for a long time. Only when his face turned red did he dare to slowly exhale and breathe in twice. After the old man's voice disappeared, the temple was quiet for a long time. The black cloth shoes that were pacing back and forth in front of the black paper bowl also disappeared. It was around 1 in the morning. Several more coughs were heard above my head. Cough, cough, cough. The 2 coughs were very loud. In this quiet old temple, it is particularly piercing to the ears. It was like a mouthful of old phlegm stuck in his throat, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. After these coughs, I saw a pair of red cloth shoes walking towards me through the gap under the yellow cloth. There was no sound, and he was still standing on tiptoe. The moonlight shining into the temple makes it look hazy. But red has to be eye-catching. It should be a woman's foot, not the man's. She approached the altar step by step, and finally the toes of her 2 red cloth shoes stretched out from the gap under the yellow cloth. When I saw the 2 red cloth shoes, I quickly shrank back. But there's not much room in here, and I don't have much room to move around. That thing outside, just standing there. It was not until more than 10 minutes later that a middle-aged woman's voice sounded. Who's down there? You've been taking up space for so long, why don't you leave? The voice is a little deep and thin. There was a hint of anger in his tone. I heard the other party suddenly speak, and it was obvious that he was asking me. I hurriedly responded as Master Gu had instructed me. Salesman. Stay 1 night and leave. As soon as she finished speaking, the middle-aged woman said, "Oh," and stepped out with her red shoes stuck in the gap of the yellow cloth. Then I saw her tiptoeing and walking to the side. I didn't even breathe a sigh of relief when the other party left. The middle-aged woman's voice sounded again from the other side of the temple. The salesman said he would stay one night and then leave. She seemed to be speaking to someone else, but her tone was complaining. I pricked up my ears and listened quietly. It was obvious that there was more than one filth creature in the house. I guess there are at least 3. The one sitting on the altar above my head, coughing constantly. Wearing black cloth shoes, they said that you can only look at it but not eat it. And this woman who asked me questions. Then, the temple was quiet for a while. It was about 1:30 in the morning. The pair of black cloth shoes once again walked in front of the 2 paper bowls. His footsteps were silent, and through the gap, only his 2 feet could be seen pacing back and forth. Finally, he faced the direction of my altar and suddenly said, "Seller, how are you selling your goods?" The voice was hoarse and old. It was that old ghost. I was always very nervous. Now that he heard the question, he answered immediately. "Rice for money, eggs for medicine. Money only needs old money, medicine only needs old medicine." But who knew, I had just finished speaking. The dirty guy outside snorted coldly. "Humph! You occupied my house, brought a vicious woman outside, and sold things at such a high price." After saying that, he walked away. When I heard this, I shuddered. I always feel like I'm constantly testing the brink of death. I was very afraid that the yellow cloth on the altar in front of me would be lifted up by the other party. Then throw it out to me. However, just when I was terrified. But I heard 2 ding-ding sounds, like the sound of coins falling to the ground. Before I lowered my head to look outside, I saw an old coin rolling in from the gap under the yellow cloth and stopping next to my hand. Then, a white hand suddenly grabbed a handful of glutinous rice from the black paper bowl. A few seconds later, the temple was filled with the sound of crunching, the sound of someone chewing rice. It's very dry and crisp, and very uncomfortable to listen to. But at this moment, I hurriedly picked up the old coin. The pattern is not clear, but it is much smaller than the money used to fight ghosts. It should be similar to a copper coin with a hole in the middle, and it feels very cold like a piece of ice. As soon as I held it in my hand, another old coin rolled under the altar. And it rolled right where my hand was. The next second, another white hand suddenly grabbed a handful of glutinous rice from the black paper bowl. Then, in the temple, the second sound of chewing rice appeared. Creaky sounds came from both sides at the same time. Damn, that sound is so terrible. If I hadn't tried hard to restrain myself and kept telling myself not to be afraid, to hold on and to live, I feel like I might collapse. As time went by, cold old coins rolled in with a clanging sound. The number of eggs in the black paper bowl used to sell eggs was decreasing one by one. Then I saw some black things being thrown into the bowl. I didn't dare to reach out and take it, because I didn't know what the so-called old medicine was. But it seems that there is a lot of dirt in this temple. It definitely exceeded my previous guess, there are more than 3. Because a lot of the time, I didn't see the shoes. Suddenly, I saw hands appearing and grabbing rice and eggs. And it flashed by and disappeared quickly. Now there are 5 or 6 sounds of chewing rice. There are also some subtle, bargy sounds, it feels like eating eggs. From the sounds, there are dirty things standing in all directions of this temple. Although I didn't see them eating rice or eggs. But these sounds made me imagine that they were eating the delicious food in a strange way. In his hand, he held the cold old money, enough for 10 coins. The 10 eggs outside have also been sold out. Listen to their crunching sounds of people chewing rice and eating eggs outside. I felt like a cat in a lurch, and was extremely anxious. I really hope time passes quickly and it will be morning soon. This way, I can take the work back to the master and report it. But who would have thought that at this time, the pair of feet wearing black cloth shoes appeared in front of the altar again? I can clearly feel a chill coming. Then, the hoarse old man's voice sounded. "Seller, that fierce woman outside is looking for you. We have sold all our goods, it's time to leave."